A heavy boot connects with Soma Sakaki, sending him sprawling as a memory of a warning echoes in his head. The leader of the Harsalers laughs in his face, reminding him he's just the son of a common criminal. Soma shouts back that his father isn't a criminal, but the voice in his head tells him he must never use that power. In this world, some things are better left hidden as the sun sets on another day of misery. Soma walks through the crowded city streets, feeling completely invisible among the passing strangers. His face is a mess of bruises, a physical mark of the secret humanity he's forced to suppress. It's a typical day at a high school in Japan, but for Soma, the campus is a literal battleground. The bullies corner him in the backyard, throwing the same tired insults about his father's reputation. A kick to the chest sends Soma hitting the dirt again. His textbooks are scattered across the ground as the trio towers over him. The leader mocks his ambitions, laughing at the idea of a criminal's kid aiming for a top university. He grinds his shoe into Soma's study guide, telling him he's dreaming way too big for a loser. Soma looks up with wide, frustrated eyes, asking what's so wrong with trying to make something of himself. The bully tells him to just look himself up, confident his name will only link back to an embezzler. Headlines about Shuichi Sakaki's arrest flash before his eyes, confirming the nightmare that's destroyed his family. Soma stares at the ground, the weight of the accusations starting to crush his spirit. The guy pulls out his phone to show the news reports, gleefully declaring that Soma's life is officially over. He leans in close, whispering that no company will ever hire him, and no one will ever marry a thief's son. The bully's laughter distorts into a sickening red haze as Soma reaches his breaking point. He grits his teeth so hard they might snap, vowing to shut them all up right now. His eyes flare with a terrifying red light as he warns them not to talk trash about his dad. A sudden wave of power forces the bullies back, leaving them trembling. The leader freezes, staring into eyes that don't look human anymore. We flash back to a camping trip where his father, Shuichi Sakaki, gave him a stern warning to never use his power. Young Soma didn't understand the danger yet, thinking that controlling people sounded super useful. But Shuichi explained that only selfish people desire that kind of control over others. He warned that those who dominate others usually meet a violent end. It turns out ALIUS can use sound waves to hijack the human nervous system and seize control of the brain. Once they're in your head, they can force you to act exactly as they command. Because of this, humanity has spent centuries hunting them down as witches and symbols of rebellion. History is built on a pile of ALIUS skulls, purged to keep their existence a secret. Their existence has to stay in the shadows, buried beneath the weight of historical suppression. The red glow in Soma's eye pulses with a dangerous intensity. He fights the urge to let go, reminding himself that he can't use this power. He shuts his eyes tight, forcing the energy back down into the depths of his soul. Soma is left gasping for air as the glow fades, while the bullies just stand there confused. They have no idea how close they just came to losing their minds. The leader snaps out of it and delivers another punch, calling him a brat for trying to act tough. Later that night, Soma limps through the neon-lit city, far away from the school gates. He wonders how he's supposed to face his mother with his face in this condition. A giant screen overhead catches his attention, broadcasting a follow-up on the embezzlement case. He stops dead in his tracks as his father's face appears on the news ticker once again. The news broadcast shows a photo of Shuichi Sakaki, detailing his location in a detention center. Soma Sakaki's world shatters as the reporter announces that the suspect was found hanging in his cell. People pass him by on the street, completely oblivious to his pain as the report labels it a suicide. He breaks into a run, unable to process the news, as life in the city carries on around him. Soma screams out in agony, wondering why his father would ever choose to kill himself. He remembers his mother's desperate pleas, how she'd insisted his father was innocent and promised to fight. Soma collapses against the wall, the physical and emotional weight of everything finally taking its toll. He looks up to find a mysterious man in a dark uniform standing over him in the shadows. The stranger looks down with an unreadable expression, catching Soma completely off guard. Without a word, the man holds out a thin black notebook, offering it to the boy. Soma takes it, looking baffled as the man immediately turns around to walk away. Standing alone in the dark, he wonders what could possibly be inside the mysterious notebook. He opens it and finds a list of names, executives from the companies his father was accused of stealing from. His eyes widen as he sees names of influential politicians and massive investment fund data. Realizing the danger, Soma rushes home and slams the door open, calling out for his mother. The house is eerily quiet, the dark hallway stretching out before him like a bad omen. He steps inside, his voice trembling as he calls her name one more time. Soma's eyes go wide with a horror far worse than anything he'd seen on the news. He finds his mother lying in a pool of blood, a kitchen knife abandoned on the floor beside her. A blood-curdling scream rips through his throat as the reality of her death hits him. He thinks back to the day his father was arrested, the police swarming their home as their lives began to unravel. The media had been relentless, hounding his mother every single day until she couldn't even leave the house. She had tried so hard to believe in her husband's innocence, but the pressure was clearly destroying her. Her husband's supposed suicide was the final blow that pushed her over the edge of no return. At the hospital, the doctor delivers the grim news that there was nothing more they could do for his mother. Soma stands there in a hollow daze, the last of his family officially gone. He stares into space, his mind spinning as he realizes everything he's lost in such a short time. He looks back at the notebook, certain now that his father was telling the truth about being innocent. These weren't just random scribbles. They were detailed investigation notes from his father's time at the bank. His father hadn't been an embezzler. He was a whistleblower trying to expose a massive conspiracy. The elites at the top had him killed to keep their secrets safe, and they'd destroyed his family in the process. Soma grits his teeth in a cold rage, realizing they'd dumped all the blame on an innocent man. He's snapped out of his thoughts by someone nearby mentioning a name that sounds just like his. Looking around the hospital hallway, he listens in on two nurses talking about a long-term patient. They mention that the patient's condition hasn't improved in the 3 years since he went into a vegetative state. The nurses gossip about how the boy's mother is the only one who ever visits, while the father is nowhere to be found. It's a tragic story, especially considering the kid is supposed to be the heir to a massive business empire. Soma lingers by the door of the room, his curiosity piqued by their conversation. He looks up at the nameplate for room 5153 and freezes when he sees the name, Takagi Sōma. His jaw drops. The heir to this giant conglomerate has the exact same name as him. He peeks through the door, watching the scene unfold inside the quiet hospital room. He sees a woman, Ryoko Takagi, sobbing into her hands while calling out to her unconscious son. Soma looks at his reflection, knowing his father's notebook contains the proof he needs to destroy the elite. He stares at the real Takagi Sōma, a boy with his same name who now lies helpless on life support. Looking at the pale, unconscious boy, a dark idea begins to take root in Soma's mind. He realizes that if he could somehow become the heir to this massive conglomerate, his path to revenge would be clear. As the heir of the Takagi group, he would finally be able to walk among the very people who ruined his life. Driven by a burning desire for justice for his father, he decides he must exploit this incredible coincidence. Soma slides the hospital room door open, where Ryoko Takagi is sitting faithfully by her son's side. She turns around with a look of confusion, asking the young stranger who he could possibly be. Soma's gaze turns intense, a supernatural glow beginning to flicker within his eyes. With a single, haunting command, he looks her in the eye and claims to be her son. He steps forward with newfound purpose, offering a silent apology to his deceased parents for the path he's chosen. Standing before a grand, imposing building, he sheds his old identity to begin life as Takagi Sōma. Now dressed in a crisp gray uniform, Soma prepares himself for the difficult performance ahead. With his father's innocence as his only motivation, he prepares to infiltrate the world of the powerful. He arrives at a massive, walled estate that spans thousands of tsubo, the true scale of his new life setting in. This historic mansion is the home of the Takagi group's heir, a fortress of wealth and high status. Inside the lavishly decorated living room, Ryoko Takagi waits patiently on a plush velvet sofa. She looks perfectly composed as she sips her morning tea, seemingly unaware of the deception. Soma enters the room with a practiced smile, greeting her as his mother as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He maintains a calm, respectful expression, masking the turmoil hidden deep within his soul. Ryoko looks up at him, her eyes reflecting the strange power he has exerted over her mind. He recalls the moment he used his power, his eye glowing red as he rewrote her reality. He had spoken the words with absolute conviction, forcing her to recognize him as her son, Soma. The brainwashing took hold instantly, a flicker of red light appearing in her own eyes as she accepted the lie. This is the power of the ALIUS DNA, an ability to control others through specific sound waves from the vocal cords. Now fully under his spell, Ryoko kindly reminds him that he's expected back at school today. Soma checks a log on his high-tech watch, confirming that his brainwashing command is still active and effective. Ryoko motherly fussed over him, noting that his uniform seems tight, and promising to have it altered immediately. He waves a casual goodbye as he heads out, knowing he must renew the mental command every 24 hours. After living undercover for a few days, he has already begun to uncover the dark secrets of the Asagi family. He wanders through the meticulously manicured gardens, thinking about the private matters the family keeps hidden. He remembers learning about the tragic accident overseas that had left the true heir in a vegetative state. Fearing a bloody dispute over who would succeed the head of the company, the family kept the boy's condition a secret. Everything worked in Soma's favor, especially since the real Soma's father is constantly away on business. Because the father hasn't returned to Japan in years, there is no one around who could easily see through his disguise. This perfect storm of circumstances allowed him to step seamlessly into Asagi Soma's life and identity. He stands before the gates of his new world, determined to use this position to find the truth about his father. At the school gates, groups of elite students chat amongst themselves, completely unaware of the wolf in their midst. The academy is an architectural marvel, a prestigious institution designed solely for the children of the elite. The entrance sign for Shufeng Academy serves as a reminder that only the most influential are allowed inside. Soma walks through the courtyard with a confident stride, knowing this is the only way to get close to his targets. A sleek, black limousine pulls up to the entrance, signaling the arrival of even more powerful figures. Shinomiya, the arrogant heir of Shinomiya Railways, arrives at the academy with an air of absolute authority. As he steps out of his luxury limousine, the student body erupts in whispers of admiration for the school's most powerful figure. Students watch in awe as the elite members of the fraternity arrive, feeling lucky to catch a glimpse of them so early in the morning. Among the elite is Sana Shiratori, the reserved and beautiful young lady of Shiratori General Hospital. Katsuya, whose family controls Tendo construction and the prefecture's infrastructure, walks with a confident and rebellious swagger. From the shadows, Soma observes the scene, acknowledging that these fraternity students are truly in a league of their own. He grips his father's notebook, which contains a detailed list of the local power brokers who manipulated the law. Looking at the gathered elite, Soma knows that the children of his targets are all right here in this academy. The school bell echoes through the halls, and Soma stands before his new class to introduce his stolen identity. He puts on a friendly mask, introducing himself as Asagi Sōma and offering a polite greeting to his new classmates. The room buzzes with excitement and curiosity at the arrival of the wealthy and mysterious transfer student. Katsuya and Sana Shiratori both watch the newcomer closely, each sizing up the heir to the Asagi conglomerate. Anonymous chat messages immediately begin to flood the students' phones, speculating about Soma's looks and his family's massive wealth. Soma walks calmly to his new seat as the digital gossip mill churns with rumors about his life abroad. Sana Shiratori finds herself unable to look away, her quiet interest not going unnoticed by her peers. In the palm of his hand, Katsuya grips his phone, reading the increasingly petty comments from his fellow students. His face contorts with anger, as he sees messages suggesting that his own social dominance is being threatened by the newcomer. Katsuya glares across the classroom at Soma, the tension between the two heirs already beginning to simmer. Unfazed by the hostility or the attention, Soma remains focused on the mission that brought him to this den of vipers. The school hallway is buzzing with students gathering to witness the daily drama. They whisper to each other that it's finally showtime, as if they're waiting for a performance to start. Katsuya, the leader of the bullies, wears a smug grin as he prepares to enjoy his favorite pastime. He stands over Mio, barking orders for her to hurry up and get on with it while she stands there trembling with a bucket. Mio can only look down in despair, wondering why she has to be the one put through this humiliation. Katsuya leans in close, mocking her by saying her father is just a lapdog for Tendo construction and that makes her his personal errand boy. Mio grits her teeth in silence, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and growing resentment. Katsuya just laughs, telling her she's free to refuse if she's really that pissed off. But his tone turns sharp as he reminds her that her dad's job is on the line if she doesn't cooperate. He yells for her to get moving and kicks her, sending the girl and the water flying across the floor. Soaked and shivering, Mio can only stammer out apologies as she tries to pick herself up. The group looks back toward the stairs, noticing a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Katsuya isn't finished yet, kicking her again and demanding to know what she's spacing out for. He pours the rest of the bucket over her head, laughing as she tries to shield her face. He looks down at his handiwork, calling her completely useless while his friend chuckles along. Mio stays slumped on the ground, water dripping from her hair as she takes the verbal abuse in silence. The bullies' laughter is cut short when they spot someone watching them from the landing above. Katsuya glares up at the newcomer, asking if he's the type who likes to watch without getting his own hands dirty. Sōma Sakaki gazes back with an unsettlingly calm expression, looking down on the scene with indifference. Without saying a word, Sōma kicks the empty bucket back, sending it flying right at Katsuya's head. The bully is caught completely off guard, barely having time to react as he shouts in surprise. The bucket clatters loudly against the floor, having served its purpose as a message. Katsuya squares up to Sōma, asking if he's looking for a fight. His friends quickly intervene, telling Katsuya to leave it alone and walk away. Katsuya grits his teeth, throwing one last frustrated look at Sōma before deciding to back down. The group retreats, their footsteps echoing as they leave the scene of their failed entertainment. Sōma turns his attention back to the wet, trembling student left behind. Mio looks up at him, still clearly shaken by the entire ordeal. She keeps her head down, too ashamed to even look her savior in the eye. She manages to mumble a small thank you, her voice barely audible over the dripping water. Soma's eyes remain fixed on her, cold and calculating despite the situation. He pulls out a handkerchief and hands it to her, asking if she's all right. Mio is taken aback by the kindness, stammering out another apology as she reaches for the cloth. But Sōma is thinking to himself that he already knows exactly who she is. She begins to wipe her face, hiding behind the handkerchief while she tries to regain her composure. Soma's internal voice identifies her as Kurihara Mio, and he notes exactly who her father is. Her father, Keiichiro Kurihara, is the head of the investigative division, the man responsible for his own father's arrest. He suspects that this man is the one who buried his father's whistleblowing report, destroying his family's life. Mio looks up with a soft smile, genuinely touched by the help from someone she barely knows. She thanks him again, calling him a Seijai-kun and asking if that's really his name. She reaches out to shake his hand in a gesture of friendship. As Sōma takes her hand, his eyes glow a sinister red, and he thinks that he should be the one thanking her for letting him get close so easily. Night has settled over the city, and the apartment buildings are filled with people returning to their quiet lives. Soma's family officially set up this apartment as his study room, but it's far from a place for homework. To anyone watching, he's just another student, but this is really his hideout, a safe house for his revenge. He steps into the dark room, the silence only broken by the soft click of the door locking behind him. He turns to a wall covered in notes and photos, his investigation laid out in front of him. He pins a picture of Kurihara Mio onto the board, a new piece in his complex puzzle. Right above it is the photo of her father, Keiichiro Kurihara, the head of the 2nd Investigative Division. Sōma looks at the man who arrested his father, suspecting him of burying the truth to protect the powerful. He clenches his fist in his pocket, his resolve hardening as he stares at the evidence. His phone begins to buzz, pulling him out of his thoughts and back to his mission. He answers the call, determined to uncover every secret behind his father's downfall, no matter the cost. Across the city, Keiichiro Kurihara arrives home, his wife greeting him from the kitchen. He announces his return, but his eyes immediately land on someone sitting on the couch. He sees Mio sitting there in a daze, her expression blank as she stares at nothing. She's clutching her phone, her mind seemingly miles away from the quiet living room. During dinner, her father casually mentions he'll be leaving on another business trip soon. He looks at his daughter and asks her if everything is okay, noticing her unusual silence. Mio jumps at the sound of his voice, her eyes wide as she's snapped back to reality. She tries to stammer out a response, but her father tells her to wait. He asks her how things are at school and if she's getting along with Tendo-san's son, Katsuya. Mio can only manage a weak nod, her throat tightening at the mention of her tormentor's name. She remembers the way Katsuya and his friends cornered her, a memory that still makes her heart race. Her mother smiles, saying she's heard Katsuya is a good boy who takes after his father. She encourages Mio to get along with him, having no idea what's really happening at school. Mio remains silent, the praise for the boy who humiliates her feeling like a slap in the face. Her hands shake as she grips her chopsticks, the pressure of her father's job weighing on her. She repeats her mother's words with a look of pure disbelief, questioning if Katsuya is really someone who looks after others. She's haunted by the memory of the bully's threat, warning her that her father could lose his job if she doesn't comply. Her eyes well with tears of frustration as she realizes she has no choice but to endure. Suddenly, she stands up from the table, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. She walks away without another word, her parents left watching her in confusion. Her mother is visibly worried, but her father just looks down at his meal with a cold, indifferent stare. Later that night, Sōma is on the phone again, his eyes focused on the screen. He looks out into the dark city, a puppet master pulling the first strings of his plan. The next morning at school, the bright sky offers a sharp contrast to the previous night's tension. Mio approaches Soma's desk, looking at her phone with a confused expression. She tells him that they were apparently on the phone all night, but she has no memory of what they even talked about. Sōma acts surprised, suggesting that maybe she just hit his number by mistake and left the call open. He thinks to himself that his brainwashing power is working perfectly, releasing the target once their order is done. He checks his watch, noting the timing as the control fades away. He knows that the best part of his ALIUS ability is that the victims lose all memory of being controlled. He gives her a friendly smile and asks if he can borrow her math notes, easily hiding his true intentions behind a helpful mask. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the city skyline in deep shades of amber and violet as evening approaches. Inside his dimly lit room, Sōma Sakaki sits surrounded by piles of documents, thinking that he finally has a clear picture of what goes on inside the Kurihara household. He taps a photograph of Keiichiro Kurihara, realizing that now he just needs a way to drag the truth out of the man. Looking down at his hand, he considers the limitations of his brainwashing ability, knowing all too well that vague or abstract commands are useless. A cold logic governs his power. While he can easily order someone to put down a phone, he cannot simply command them to tell the truth. He understands that his influence is strictly physical, limited to actions the target's own body could perform if he were possessing it himself. Resting his chin on his hand, he acknowledges the harsh reality that even a direct order to confess would fall on deaf ears. He surveys the scattered evidence on his desk, wondering how he can possibly get closer to the dark secrets buried in his father's old case. Night fully takes hold of the quiet residential street, the silence punctuated only by the hum of a lonely street lamp. Sōma walks through the shadows, carrying a large, vibrant bouquet of flowers as he prepares to make his move. The sound of rhythmic footsteps echoes through the alleyway as a man in a business suit makes his way home. It is Keiichiro Kurihara, walking with the steady, weary pace of a high-ranking official burdened by his duties. Sōma watches him from a distance, his mind wandering back to the stern lessons his father used to repeat so often. He recalls his father's warning about selfish people who think they can control others at their own whim. The memory is vivid and violent, a reminder that those who treat people like puppets eventually meet a gruesome end, their throats symbolically pierced. Returning to the present, Sōma realizes that for an ALIUS like himself, the very nature of his power is considered a dangerous taboo. He keeps his eyes fixed on Keiichiro's retreating back, knowing that using his ability on a high-ranking authority figure is a massive risk. He clutches the flowers tighter, well aware that the path he has chosen is fraught with peril. Taking a deep breath, he speeds up his pace to close the distance between him and his target. He calls out politely, asking if the man is Mio-kun's father, causing Keiichiro to stop and turn with a look of mild confusion. Sōma offers a warm, disarming smile, while Keiichiro asks who the young man is and what he wants. Beneath the friendly facade, Soma's resolve is absolute, telling himself that he must do this to reclaim his father's stolen honor. Suddenly, Soma's gaze sharpens as his eyes flare with a sinister red light, signaling the activation of his power. The light reflects in Keiichiro's eyes, and the man's expression instantly goes blank as the brainwashing takes hold. Soma's tone shifts to a cold, commanding rasp as he demands to see the man's phone immediately. Without a word of protest, the high-ranking officer reaches into his pocket and submissively hands over his device. Sōma takes the phone, his heart racing as he begins to scroll through the data hidden within. His eyes narrow as he scans the call history, searching for a name that would connect the dots. He focuses on the messages sent and received just before his father's world was torn apart by the arrest. Something on the screen catches his attention, and a chill runs down his spine. He sees the name Yasushi Ichijo repeated in the logs, a discovery that confirms his darkest suspicions. It is the same prefectural assemblyman whose name was scrawled in his father's private notebook before everything went wrong. Soma's eyes widen in shock as he realizes how deep the conspiracy actually goes. He notices a saved recording and plays it, hearing a voice tell Kurihara to handle a certain matter quietly. The voice in the recording explains that for an officer without a traditional career path, political connections are the only way to climb the ranks. The recording takes a darker turn as the speaker mentions that Kurihara's child attends Shoho Academy, a thinly veiled threat. The politician promises that in exchange for cooperation, he can make things very convenient for the ambitious officer. Sōma stands before the motionless man, the recording providing the final, damning piece of evidence. The truth hits him with the force of a physical blow. Kurihara is definitely the one who suppressed his father's whistleblowing report. He looms over the broken man, the realization settling into a cold, hard knot of hatred in his chest. Clutching the phone in a white-knuckled grip, Sōma stares into the void with eyes full of promise for a brutal vengeance. Far above the city, the full moon hangs in a clear night sky, watching over the silent house where the truth has finally come to light. Sōma Sakaki and Keiichiro Kurihara arrive at the Kurihara residence, where they are greeted by Mio, a young student with short pink hair and an inquisitive expression. Despite the normalcy of the scene, Keiichiro is already under Soma's control as he mechanically announces that he has brought a friend home to visit. Sōma maintains a polite and charming facade, wishing Mio a pleasant evening as he steps into the warmth of the family home. Mio's mother, busy in the kitchen, looks over with a curious smile, her attention immediately drawn to the large, vibrant bouquet of flowers Sōma is carrying. Mio watches him with a mixture of recognition and surprise, tentatively addressing him as a Seijai-kun while Sōma keeps up his deceptive, friendly act. Hidden behind his smile is a cold, calculating resolve as Sōma vows to discover if his father's arrest was truly a result of political pressure from Assemblyman Ichijo. His thoughts momentarily drift back to 2 days earlier, to the quiet solitude of his apartment where he first began to refine the details of this elaborate scheme. He had spent that night confirming the limitations of his ALIUS power, realizing that a direct, forced confession was simply beyond the reach of his ability. Since he couldn't simply order someone to tell the truth, he knew he would have to engineer a situation where the target's own actions would reveal the secret. He recalls preparing the bouquet of flowers with meticulous care, turning a symbol of goodwill into a deceptive tool for his investigation. With steady hands, he had hidden a high-tech listening device deep inside the decorative ribbon, ensuring the Kurihara home would be bugged from the inside. Back in the present, a sharp alarm rings out from his smartphone, signaling the beginning of the next phase of his ruthless plan. Sōma watches the device with a grim sense of satisfaction, knowing that the sound is the long-awaited signal to activate his mental trap. The parent's eyes glow with a piercing red light as they fall completely under his control, their subconscious minds yielding to the power of the ALIUS. He recalls the command he gave to Mio's mother, ordering her to place the flowers in a vase and wait for the alarm to trigger her next move. His cold gaze had then shifted to Mio, ensuring that every member of the household would serve as a puppet in his pursuit of the truth. He had extended his mental influence over the child as well, his eyes burning crimson as he dictated the role they would all play in his grand design. As the signal pulses, the psychological pressure manifests like a racing heartbeat, forcing the targets to succumb entirely to his overwhelming will. The flowers now sit innocently in a vase on the table, the hidden bug active and ready to record the confession that could finally clear his father's name. Section Chief Kurihara arrives home, appearing disoriented as he greets his wife. He rubs his head in confusion, wondering what he was just doing before entering the room. Mio stands before him, her eyes glowing red as she says that people at school talk trash about him. A memory of Mio being bullied flashes through her mind, showing the cost of her father's reputation. She accuses him of taking bribes, while Kurihara can only stammer that such a thing is ridiculous. The girl mentions a specific banker embezzlement case, her gaze fixed and unnatural. Sōma Sakaki stands hidden behind her, his own eyes crimson as he manipulates Mio's every word. Kurihara is visibly shaken, asking how she could possibly know about such things. From a distance, Sōma monitors the conversation through his earpiece, his face a mask of cold indifference. Mio presses further, demanding to know who threatened him and why the truth was buried. Her voice is robotic as she orders her father to tell her the absolute truth. Sōma thinks to himself that while brainwashing can't force a confession, using Mio is the perfect lever. A confident smile crosses Soma's face as he prepares to break the detective's resolve. He waits for Section Chief Kurihara's answer, sensing that the man is on the verge of collapsing. Kurihara looks down, his face etched with the weariness of a man keeping too many secrets. He finally gives in, telling her that he will reveal everything. The man sits, his hands clasped as he prepares to speak the truth. Sōma smirks, enjoying the success of his psychological trap. Suddenly, Mio's eyes clear as the hypnosis breaks, leaving her startled and confused. Kurihara shouts that her father never buried that case, surprising both the girl and the listener. Soma's amusement vanishes as he hears Kurihara's defiant tone through the feed. The detective insists that the real problem was a simple lack of evidence. He explains that the higher-ups would have crushed the investigation if they hadn't moved with absolute certainty. Soma looks stunned, realizing there were holes in his own understanding of the whistleblowing incident. Kurihara clarifies that while politicians put on pressure, the evidence eventually proved the banker was the one who embezzled the money. A memory of the actual arrest reinforces his claim that he did what was right within the law. Clenching his fist, he swears that he will settle things properly with his own hands one day. He shouts that this commitment to the long game is what he believes justice truly is. Soma stands still, his expression turning serious as he processes this new perspective. He stares into the void, his eyes reflecting a newfound respect for the man's integrity. Touching his earpiece, he admits that Kurihara might really be a man of justice after all. Soma turns his back on the house and walks away, the mission ending on an unexpected note. Back inside, Kurihara laments that non-career officers like him have to stay quiet and follow orders to survive. He recalls a humiliating moment of being treated like a dog on a leash by the elite bosses. The man buries his face in his hand, the weight of his compromises finally showing. Mio gazes at him, the anger in her eyes replaced by a deep, hollow sadness. Kurihara explains that he put her in the elite academy so she could have a better path and never live in humiliation like him. Mio stands up, her body tensing as she prepares to release years of pent-up frustration. She screams that he isn't the only one who has had to endure suffering. Kurihara's eyes widen in shock at his daughter's sudden outburst. Tears burst from Mio's eyes as she shouts that she is already miserable enough as it is. Her parents can only watch in stunned silence as the girl's composure completely shatters. Young Mio explains through tears that the bullies threatened to force his father out of his job if he ever tried to fight back. His mother remains silent, her expression filled with a quiet, heartbreaking helplessness. He cries out that he didn't want to cause any more trouble for his parents, so he chose to endure it all alone. Section Chief Kurihara can't find the words to answer his son's confession of sacrifice. He pulls Mio into a desperate embrace, trying to shield him from the pain of the past. Kurihara apologizes again and again, admitting that the burden was his to carry, not his son's. He laments his failure to protect his own family, his voice cracking under the weight of his guilt. Close-ups of their faces capture the raw agony of the moment as the truth finally settles between them. Mio lets out a long, trembling breath as he clings to his father, the years of hidden suffering finally coming to an end. His mother watches with a gentle, tearful smile, relieved that the wall of silence between them has finally crumbled. The family stands together in the fading light, sensing that they can finally take a new step forward. The scene shifts back to Shuho Academy, where the prestigious towers of the school loom over the student body. In a quiet hallway, a bucket of water is placed on the floor as the bullying cycle begins anew. Mio looks up, his green eyes filled with a new, unwavering determination as he faces his tormentors. When the leader of the bullies demands to know if he'll do as he's told, Mio gives a flat, firm refusal. The bully sneers, mocking Mio's newfound backbone and threatening to put pressure on his father again. He tells Mio to go ahead and try to resist, confident that his family's power is absolute. Mio clenches his fist, declaring that no matter how much pull they have, his father will never bow to them again. He shouts that he is officially done taking orders from anyone ever again. The bully's arrogant smirk vanishes, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. Soma Sakaki watches the scene unfold from a distance, a sharp, calculating glint in his light blue eyes. He leans back, seemingly bored but clearly satisfied with how his plans are coming together. Later that night, Soma stands in his base of operations, his silhouette cast against the wall of investigation data. His focus lands on the image of Assemblyman Ichijo Yasushi, the man at the center of his revenge. He reflects on the high-rise power structures that protected the man who destroyed his life. The name has finally surfaced from Section Chief Kurihara's audio logs, confirming his suspicions. Soma identifies Yasushi Ichijo as the boss of the prefectural assembly, a man with significant influence over the police. He vows to corner the powerful politician, regardless of the obstacles in his way. A hand reaches out, ready to manipulate the next piece on his board. He turns his attention to Kaido, the assemblyman's son, realizing how he can be used as a perfect tool for infiltration. Sōma stands before his finished wall of targets, the Ability Avenger ALIUS, ready to strike. The next day at school, students gather as usual, unaware of the shifting dynamics. Mio carefully inspects a ribbon on a desk, thanking Sōma for his previous help. He mentions how beautiful the bouquet was and how he wanted to share that beauty with his mother. Still, he wonders aloud exactly when Sōma went home the day before, finding his presence a bit mysterious. A hazy memory of Kurihara bringing Sōma over to their house flashes through his mind. Sōma brushes off the question with a simple smile, addressing Mio directly. He remarks that Mio was clearly struggling with his feelings toward his father. He asks if the talk they had afterwards managed to clear the air between them. Mio smiles warmly, confirming that things are much better now. He thanks Sōma for giving him the push he needed, calling him by his real name before catching himself. Sōma simply tells him to stop being so formal, and just call him Sōma from now on. Mio asks Sōma if he should call him Sōma-kun from now on, his expression a mix of shyness and newfound respect. Sōma smiles and tells Mio that his help in class has been more than enough to repay any favor. Excited to be of use, Mio promises to assist Sōma with anything at any time. Sōma's tone turns serious as he admits there is something he needs help with right away. The sound of the school bell rings out across the campus under a vast, cloudless sky. Mio follows Sōma up the stairs, sounding nervous as he asks if Sōma is truly going to the roof. Sōma confirms his plan, stating that he is looking for Kaido Ichijo. Mio warns him that while Kaido is there, he is a dangerous individual to approach. As he touches the door handle, Mio whispers that the rumors about Kaido are far from good. Sōma pushes the door open and steps onto the rooftop, while Mio lingers cautiously behind him. They witness Kaido, wearing a gray hoodie, aggressively grabbing another student by his collar near the railing. Sōma watches the confrontation with a cold, steady gaze, while Mio is visibly shaken. The scene on the roof remains tense as Kaido continues to intimidate the other boy. Kaido snaps his head around with an annoyed expression, demanding to know what they want. Sōma and Mio stand their ground in silence, though Mio clearly wants to be anywhere else. Angered by the intrusion, Kaido yells at them to stop staring and insults their presence. The other student, Katsuya, looks at Kaido and coolly reminds him that he was already warned. Kaido roughly shoves Katsuya aside, telling him to get out of the way. He turns his full, aggressive attention towards Sōma and asks what his business is. Sōma remains unflappable, stating that it simply looked like things were getting a bit heated. Kaido clicks his tongue in annoyance, finding Soma's calm demeanor to be incredibly irritating. The two face off on the rooftop, with Sōma silently wondering about the warning Katsuya mentioned. Suddenly, Kaido lunges forward and grabs Soma's uniform, the fabric bunching in his fist. He threatens Sōma, telling him not to interfere unless he's looking for a beating. Sōma doesn't move, meeting Kaido's fierce gaze with one of his own. Mio gasps from behind, his eyes wide with fear as the situation turns violent. Sōma remarks that the behavior of an assemblyman's son is quite impressive in its arrogance. He adds with a smirk that it's no wonder the heir to Tendo Construction shows him such respect. Kaido's face contorts with rage as he calls Sōma a bastard, his grip tightening further. Mio urgently calls out to Sōma, pointing out that they'll be late for class if they don't leave. Kaido finally releases Sōma and barks an order for them to get lost immediately. Mio quickly pulls Sōma toward the exit, apologizing for the bother with a frantic tone. Sōma looks back over his shoulder, a small, knowing smile touching his lips. On the roof, Sōma reflects on Katsuya's warning, realizing that things might not be as simple as they seem. Night settles over the city, the tall buildings becoming dark silhouettes against the twilight. Sōma sits in his room, pondering the connection between Katsuya of Tendo Construction and Kaido Ichijo. He studies the photographs on his board, his mind analyzing the power dynamic between the two. He questions why two heirs from such influential families were fighting so openly on school grounds. Sōma rests his chin on his hand, searching for a hidden link that ties them together. The scene shifts to a lonely urban street illuminated by the cold glow of a street lamp. A lone figure walks through a dimly lit tunnel as a train rumbles across the bridge above. Kaido walks through the night with a grim, determined expression, his mind filled with troubled thoughts. Kaido stops in his tracks as the sound of footsteps following him echoes through the dark tunnel. He turns slightly, asking with an irritated tone how much longer the intruder plans to tail him. Sōma steps out from the shadows, and Kaido recognizes him immediately, speaking the name Takagi Sōma with clear disdain. The two young men lock eyes in the dimly lit passage, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken hostility. Sōma maintains his composure, his voice steady as he calls out Kaito's full name. Suddenly, a violent and menacing memory of a boy with glowing red eyes flashes through Soma's mind. The mental shock is so intense that Sōma recoils, his body reacting as if he has been physically struck. He drops to his knees on the cold concrete, clutching his head in a moment of sheer mental agony. Sōma looks up, sweating and panting, while trying to regain his focus under Kaido's watchful gaze. Kaido stands over him and cracks his knuckles, radiating a dark and aggressive aura that fills the narrow space. He stares down at Sōma with a look of pure disdain, his eyes narrowed and unfriendly. Kaido sneers, asking what a pampered heir from the Takagi family could possibly want with him. He clenches his fists and challenges Sōma, asking if he's looking for a fight right here and now. Sōma manages to find his voice, asking Kaido the real reason he was fighting with Katsuya Tendo earlier. Enraged by the question, Kaido seizes Sōma by the collar and shouts at him to stay out of matters that don't concern him. With his face inches from Soma's, Kaido warns him never to show his face again before roughly releasing his grip. Kaido turns his back and walks away into the darkness, leaving Sōma alone on the ground. Sōma pulls himself up and realizes that if he wants to get close to Kaido, he must first find a way to earn his trust. As the sun sets over the city buildings, Sōma reveals that he began digging into Kaido's background and found something unexpected. Soma Sakaki stands in the shadows, his eyes fixed on a real estate agent busy outside his office. He looks down at a folder from Arizuki Real Estate, confirming that Kaido is indeed renting an apartment. Soma notes that Kaido went through his mother's side for the lease, suggesting his relationship with his assemblyman father is anything but smooth. The fading light of dusk settles over the quiet stairs of an apartment complex. Kaido walks down the metal steps, his head bowed and hands shoved deep into his pockets. After a long day at school, Kaido heads home, unaware that every step he takes is being watched. Soma peeks around a corner, his gaze sharp and unwavering as he tracks the boy's movements. He watches Kaido's silhouette fade into the distance as the night begins to swallow the streets. A car pulls up alongside Kaido, and a group of guys inside call out to him with familiar grins. Soma observes the scene from a distance, noting that the son of a high-ranking official is mixing with a gang of punks. He adjusts his cap and smirks, realizing he just found some very useful leverage. Darkness fully descends upon the city, the lights from the office buildings twinkling like distant stars. Soma studies an investigation board covered in photos and notes about the Ichijo family's complicated situation. He eventually makes his way to the imposing gates of the Ichijo family residence. A woman opens the front door and asks how she can help the stranger standing on her porch. Soma pulls his cap lower, casually noting the complete lack of security cameras around the entrance. Suddenly, his eyes glow a terrifying crimson as he uses his ALIUS power to seize control of the woman's mind. Elsewhere, Kaido trudges through the brightly lit nightlife district, surrounded by the hum of the city. He feels a vibration in his pocket, and pulls out his phone with a look of mild confusion. He clicks his tongue in annoyance the moment he sees the caller ID flashing on the screen. He answers the call, only for a voice on the other end to mockingly ask if he's some kind of rich brat. Back at the house, the hypnotized woman speaks into the phone, stating that the master has something to discuss with Kaido. Kaido stops in his tracks, asking if the old man really wants to see him after all this time. From a darkened room, a pair of cold, calculating eyes watch the intercom monitor with intense focus. Kaido stares at his phone in disbelief, wondering what kind of game his family is playing now. He clenches his jaw, a mixture of anger and suspicion etched across his face. Shiro Ichijo steps out to meet him, flatly stating that there's no way their father would ever agree to see him. Kaido points a finger at him and retorts that Shiro was the one who called him out there in the first place. He grits his teeth and asks what kind of nonsense his older brother is babbling about now. Shiro speaks through the intercom, his voice dripping with condescension as he mocks Kaido's situation. He adjusts his glasses and mentions he heard Kaido was leeching off their mother's relatives. He leans in close and sneers, asking if Kaido is only here because he needs to beg for more money. Kaido's patience snaps as he tells Shiro to stop trying to piss him off. He yells at the top of his lungs, demanding to know why he would ever want a single cent of their filthy money. Soma remains hidden in the darkness nearby, watching the brothers' confrontation with a detached interest. Shiro looks away coldly and says he doesn't even consider Kaido his brother anymore, calling him a maggot. He steps forward and warns Kaido that he could easily hand him over to the police if he doesn't leave. Kaido lets out a sharp laugh and asks which one of them would really be in trouble if the cops showed up. Enraged by the defiance, Shiro shoves Kaido with all his might, sending him stumbling back. Kaido hits the ground hard, a small grunt escaping his lips as he tries to catch his breath. With blood trickling from a cut on his head, he tells Shiro to listen up and remember this moment. He glares at Shiro with burning eyes, swearing that he's going to drag every last secret they're hiding into the light. Sōma Sakaki watches from the shadows, his eyes narrowed as he observes the confrontation between the brothers. Kaido glares at Shiro Ichijo, warning him to get ready because his days are numbered. Sōma steps out from the darkness to confront Kaido directly. Kaido is taken aback by the sudden appearance, whispering the name Asagi in surprise. Sōma reaches into his pocket and pulls out a clean handkerchief. He looks at the boy and realizes he had completely misjudged Kaido's true intentions. A memory flashes of Kaido meeting with a group of shady individuals to gather information on his own father's corruption. Sōma hands over the cloth and tells Kaido that he's bleeding and should wipe himself up. Kaido stares at the handkerchief, his expression unreadable as Sōma walks away. Sōma is now certain that Kaido is exactly the kind of person he needs. He adjusts his cap with a knowing smirk, thinking that Kaido is going to be very useful. The city's nightlife district comes alive with neon lights as the evening continues. A luxury car pulls up to the curb, its wheels coming to a smooth stop. Yasushi Ichijo steps out, looking every bit the powerful assemblyman he is. He enters the exclusive club with his entourage, ignoring the curious glances of others. The staff bows deeply and welcomes the important guests, leading them straight to the VIP seats. Inside, a staff member waits in the wings, his face partially obscured by his new role. It's Sōma Sakaki, now disguised as a waiter and ready to begin his infiltration. He recalls the investigation board where he mapped out the Ichijo family's dark secrets. He remembers Kaido's vow to drag everything they were doing into the light. Kaito's determination to expose the corruption of his father has become the missing piece of Soma's puzzle. Sōma thinks that the warning Kaido gave might be directly connected to his own father's case. By day, he maintains his facade as a typical high school student. He yawns in the middle of a lecture, while Mio watches him with a look of mild suspicion. But as night falls, he returns to the district where the powerful come to play. He works at the high-end club that Assemblyman Ichijo is known to frequent. About a week has passed since he began living this exhausting double life. Sōma focuses on his duties, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His earpiece crackles with an order to prioritize the VIP table immediately. He moves toward the booth with a steady, professional gait. Assemblyman Yasushi Ichijo is sitting with Tendo Akira, the president of Tendo Construction. Sōma positions himself nearby, listening intently to the targets of his investigation. Tendo Akira lets out a loud, boisterous laugh as he enjoys his drink. The group at the table is completely relaxed, unaware that they are being observed. A woman at the table laughs at the president's joke while Sōma waits for his chance. He prepares an ice bucket, his mind working quickly to execute his plan. Soma's eyes suddenly flash a brilliant crimson as he activates his ALIUS power on a fellow waiter. The other waiter's eyes turn red as he falls completely under Soma's mental control. The hypnotized man steps aside and says he's counting on Sōma to handle the service. Sōma approaches the VIPs and tells them to leave the service to him. He leans in and mutters that he's already swatted that pesky fly. Yasushi Ichijo is startled by the unexpected comment and asks if he just said something. Tendo Akira, the president of Tendo Construction, nervously apologizes as cold sweat beads on his forehead. The women at the table laugh off Sōma Sakaki's comment, teasing that the young waiter sounds quite scary and mean. Tendo remains shaken, his thoughts racing as he wonders if the waiter was referring to the pesky fly he had mentioned earlier. As Sōma exits the VIP room, Tendo wonders if the young man has truly taken care of someone who was obstructing his business with Assemblyman Ichijo. Sōma adjusts his tie with a faint, satisfied smile, feeling confident that he has finally secured a solid lead. Back at school the next day, the chime signals the start of lunch as Sōma and Mio sit together on a bench. Mio asks if it's possible that Kutsuya's father is actually involved with dangerous criminal elements. Sōma confirms her suspicions, leaning back as they discuss the dark connections they've uncovered during their investigation. In the background, a group of students gathers, one of them declaring that they can't allow someone to keep acting in such a way. Sōma remains lost in thought, realizing that the system is broken and that someone has to be the one to change things. Mio notices his distant gaze and calls out to him with a look of deep concern. She tells him that he's been looking completely worn out lately, and that she's been very worried about him. With a determined look, Mio asks if there is anything at all she can do to help him with his burden. She clenches her fists and confidently states that she is actually quite skilled at gathering information. Sōma lets out a genuine laugh, telling her that her help would be incredibly valuable to him in this fight. He looks at her and thinks that bringing Mio into his investigation might be the right move to make progress. He hopes that her involvement will eventually lead to the breakthrough he needs for his father's case. Sōma stares ahead with intense resolve, swearing to himself that he will use every resource at his disposal. Unbeknownst to them, another student watches their conversation through a window with a curious expression. The student eventually turns away and walks down the empty hallway, leaving the two of them alone on the bench. The scene shifts to a massive construction site, a reminder that Tendo construction is a dominant force in the prefecture's infrastructure. Sōma and Mio head to the municipal library to dig deeper into the company's history and past accidents. Among the quiet bookshelves, Mio calls Sōma over to show him what she has found in the archives. She spreads out a newspaper and points to an article that immediately caught her attention. The report states that 3 months ago, a scaffolding collapse at a Tendo site resulted in a serious injury to the site manager. Mio points out that while the official report blames strong winds for the collapse, the facts don't seem to line up. She explains that the meteorological data shows the wind speed that day was barely 3 meters per second. Showing him the data on her tablet, she asks if he doesn't find the discrepancy in the report incredibly suspicious. Sōma realizes that the collapse likely wasn't an accident, but a deliberate attempt to eliminate someone who knew too much. He recalls Tendo Akira's boastful words and realizes the man didn't just silence a voice, but destroyed a life. Later that night, Sōma infiltrates a restricted area, prompting a security guard to shine a light and demand to know who is there. Before the guard can finish his warning, Soma's eyes glow red, and the man falls into a trance, unable to resist his influence. Inside an office, Sōma begins searching through the records for information on the injured site manager. He finds a document stating that the man had been a loyal employee of Tendo Construction for 20 years before the accident. The records show that after the tragedy, the man was denied compensation, left with a permanent disability, and crushed by debt. The scene shifts to the former manager, now a homeless man sitting in a park at twilight, his life completely ruined by the company. Sōma approaches the park, his footsteps quiet as he nears the man who lost everything to the president's greed. The man looks up from his ken, his eyes filled with a hollow sense of resignation as he watches the stranger approach. Back in the library, Mio expresses how truly awful the situation is for the former manager, and Soma's expression darkens. He clenches his fist tightly, declaring that what they have done to that man is absolutely unforgivable. He thinks of the wealthy elite laughing and drinking in their VIP booths, thriving on the easy money made from misery. Meanwhile, the former site manager sits by a trash bin, a stark reminder of how the powerful treat even the righteous as disposable. Sōma Sakaki's eyes burn with a cold fire as he recalls the painful truth that this is exactly how they killed his father. Mio watches him with a mixture of concern and uncertainty, asking what his next move will be in this dangerous game. Soma's expression hardens as he declares his obvious intent to drag every hidden secret and crime into the light of day. The scene shifts to a sunny afternoon in a public park, where a yellow banner flutters in the gentle breeze near a group of trees. A large crowd of people in need gathers at a soup kitchen, where the Asahi conglomerate logo is visible on the equipment as they serve the community. Among the crowd, men in masks and heavy coats wait their turn, grateful for whatever relief they can find in their difficult lives. Sōma and Mio have joined the effort, wearing aprons as they work together to serve the long line of hungry people in the park. Mio smiles warmly as she ladles out portions of hot beef tendon curry, trying to bring a moment of comfort to those waiting in line. A steaming bowl of curry is handed over, the rich aroma filling the air as a symbol of hope for the weary and hungry recipients. The former site manager, still wearing his red cap, receives a bowl from Sōma and offers a quiet, sincere word of thanks. Sōma pauses and watches the man walk away, his mind clearly focused on the connection between this victim and his own past. From above, the massive scale of the gathering is evident as dozens of people wait patiently for their turn at the serving tables. Mio glances over at Sōma, sensing that his thoughts are elsewhere, and wondering what has captured his attention so fully. Soma pulls the former site manager aside to talk, sharing that someone very important to him went through something remarkably similar. The man looks at Soma with surprise, his weary eyes widening as he realizes that the young volunteer understands his pain. Soma's voice is low and steady as he explains how his loved one was framed for a crime that he absolutely did not commit. He continues the tragic story, describing how the person was first framed and then systematically erased from existence. Soma admits that while he cannot disclose the source of his information, he knows the truth about the man's situation and the company's crimes. With intense determination, Soma asks the man if he will allow him to take up the fight against the bastards who destroyed their lives. Soma stands near the man in the red cap, listening as he begins to share a dark secret. He explains that Tendo Construction had been awarded a contract to reinforce an old bridge in the area. To save on disposal costs, the company illegally dumped hazardous asbestos materials deep in the woods. The man tried to blow the whistle on the operation, noting that the Kurokai gang was helping with the dumping. In retaliation, they didn't just silence him, they pushed him right off the roof of a building. Soma stares at the survivor, his face a mask of cold, focused anger. The man leans in and warns the kid that he needs to watch his own back from now on. Soma remains silent, the weight of the warning settling over him as he considers his next move. As the man walks away into the distance, a pair of boots steps into the frame behind Soma. Kaido approaches from the side, remarking that the old man's warning is absolutely right. He points out how the Kurokai has spent years aggressively taking over the city's nightlife scene. They've clawed their way into power, leaving a trail of broken people in their wake. Kaido explains that these people have zero morals and will do absolutely anything for a quick buck. They rely on constant threats and brutality to keep their illegal operations running smoothly. Kaido looks grim as he talks about the rot that has infected every corner of their world. He notes that with powerful backers protecting them, the police just sit on their hands and let it happen. He turns to face Soma, warning him that these are the dangerous people he's actually dealing with. Soma just looks at him, showing no sign of fear despite the grim reality of the situation. Kaido scoffs, telling the elite rich boy that he shouldn't be sticking his nose into this kind of mess. Soma hands him an envelope and fires back, saying that Kaido is the one who is only halfway in. Kaido pulls out a photo of a group of corrupt men at a table and looks completely horrified. He demands to know where Soma managed to get his hands on photos like these. Soma looks him dead in the eye and asks if he's really ready to drag his own father down to hell. Kaido stares at the evidence, the reality of his father's crimes finally hitting home. Soma reminds him that exposing his dad means the same danger will come after him too. Kaido clenches his fist tightly, stating that this is something he absolutely has to settle himself. Soma looks away coldly, telling the guy that he should just stay out of his way. He declares that his true mission is to drain the rot and pus out of the entire city. Kaido repeats the word with a grim look, starting to understand the scale of what Soma is planning. Soma refers to the powerful men scheming in the shadows, sacrificing the weak for their own gain. He makes a solemn vow that he is going to be the one to fight against people like that. Kaido looks at him with newfound respect, realizing this isn't just some rich kid's game. Mio runs up to join them, her pink hair bright against the drab background. She reveals that Tendo Katsuya has been tormenting her and her family for a very long time. She remembers the warmth of her family before everything was taken away from them. Mio tells Soma that he gave her the push she needed to finally change and start fighting back. Kaido huffs, his initial hostility finally beginning to fade. He looks at the two of them and says that if they're actually serious about this mission. Soma reaches out his hand, asking Kaido to lend them his strength for what's to come. Kaido takes a moment to look at the offered hand, a heavy silence falling between them. He finally admits that they really mean it, and decides to team up with them once and for all. Soma smiles and tells them to wait, while he informs the staff he's stepping out from the meal line. Soma and Mio stand together in the yard, looking out toward the distant, tree-covered hills. Soma, still wearing his white apron, looks over his shoulder with a sharp and calculating gaze. He holds a smartphone to his ear, listening intently as the call connects to Tendo Construction. He calmly tells the person on the other end that he called earlier and asks to be connected to the department in charge. The voice on the phone asks for the specific nature of his business. With Mio and Kaido watching, Soma brings up the illegal scrap disposal site and their secret ties to the Kurokai gang. Far away at the site, a group of suspicious-looking men loiters near stacks of heavy construction pipes. Sōma smirks into the phone, mentioning he heard some high school kids have been snooping around their site. Night falls over the dense forest surrounding the restricted disposal area. A large yellow warning sign at the perimeter states that the area is for authorized personnel only. Shadows move across the dirt ground as someone cautiously enters the forbidden zone. Sōma, Mio, and Kaido walk together into the heart of the scrapyard, surrounded by piles of rubble. Kaido looks around skeptically, asking how they are supposed to find real proof of the connection here. Sōma remains focused, stating that they definitely need solid evidence, and that is exactly why they came. Suddenly, a group of armed thugs emerges from the darkness, completely surrounding the three of them. A thug with a bat mocks them, asking if the rich boys realize where they've wandered into. Mio trembles with fear, whispering Soma's name as she looks at the menacing crowd. Sōma hides a knowing smile, thinking to himself that everything is going exactly as they planned. Somewhere else, a man in a suit shouts into a phone, realizing Tendo Construction has really sicked the gang on them. Back at the yard, the Korokai members close in on the cornered students with their weapons ready. The lead thug sneers, telling them that nobody is going to come to their rescue out here. Kaido isn't intimidated. He cracks his knuckles and tells the thugs to show him what they've got. Sōma quickly orders Mio to go hide behind a stack of materials while they handle the thugs. The thugs charge forward with a shout, telling the brats that they shouldn't mouth off to adults. A brutal kick sends Sōma crashing into the debris with a heavy thud. He wipes blood from his bruised face, cursing under his breath as he struggles to get back up. The lead thug laughs at their pathetic struggle, asking if that is really all they have to offer. Sōma grits his teeth, thinking it's still too early to turn the tables. They have to look like they're losing. He takes another heavy punch to the face, his body recoiling from the force of the blow. He looks up through the pain, determined to endure it a little longer for the sake of the plan. Nearby, Kaido is also taking hits, blocking a punch with his arms as he fights for his life. He roars in frustration, his intense eyes showing that he is reaching the limit of his patience. The thug mocks them again, telling the pampered rich kids to keep their noses out of grown-up business. Kaido glares back, his face covered in bruises but his spirit completely unbroken. Sōma looks over at Mio, a silent signal of understanding passing between them in the chaos. Mio is visibly shaking with fear, her eyes wide as she watches the violence unfold. Sōma reminds himself that obtaining solid evidence is the only thing that matters right now. Mio grips her phone tightly, a realization finally dawning on her as she hides in the shadows. She suddenly understands that this is her chance to do what only she can for the team. She realizes she can record the entire confrontation to provide the evidence they desperately need. One of the thugs growls at the others, wondering why they are stalling instead of finishing them off. He swings a heavy club at Kaido, noting that the boy is surprisingly tough for a student. Mio huddles in the thick brush, her hands trembling as she records the brutal scene with her phone, crying out for Kaido to be careful. Kaido snaps his head around, his expression shifting from focused concentration to sudden alarm as he senses the approaching threat. Sōma quickly positions himself in front of Kaido, his face a mask of cold determination as he prepares to intervene. A sinister crimson light flares in Soma's eyes as the hidden power of the ALIUS begins to stir within him. Brandishing a retractable baton, Sōma commands the attackers to stay where they are, his voice radiating a lethal authority. His gaze is predatory and intense, his glowing red pupils fixed on the thugs with a terrifying, unyielding focus. With a single, fluid motion, Sōma strikes with blinding speed, his weapon connecting solidly with the lead thug's chest. The force of the blow is devastating, sending the man sprawling onto the dirt ground in a cloud of dust and debris. Sōma stands amidst the chaos, looking down at the defeated gang members with nothing but cold contempt. He remains indifferent to the bruises on his own face, his eyes distant and detached from the violence he just committed. From her hiding spot, Mio ensures that every second of the gang's humiliating defeat is captured clearly on video. Kaido wipes away a trail of blood from his mouth, mocking the thugs for the pathetic act of targeting high schoolers. The remaining Korokai members exchange nervous, uncertain glances, their initial confidence having completely vanished. Kaido continues to taunt them with a smirk, jokingly asking if their gang was actually called the Cowardly Rat Kai. The leader of the thugs bristles at the insult, his face contorting into a mask of pure, unbridled rage. He snarls at the teenagers, demanding to know if they truly have a death wish for daring to mock his organization. The entire gang erupts into a chorus of enraged shouts, their pride deeply wounded by the students' biting words. Sōma simply smirks at their outbursts, declaring that from this point forward, the situation has changed completely. As the fight resumes, Sōma tells Kaido that they are now free to retaliate with as much force as they desire. Soma's eyes burn with ALIUS energy once more as he pins a thug against the rubble, ordering him not to move. He delivers a powerful, crushing blow that sends the man flying backward, ending the struggle instantly. Watching from the greenery, Mio is awestruck by the incredible power and skill her friends are showing. The yard soon falls silent, littered with the unconscious bodies of the gang as Kaido asks if that was all they had. Kaido and Sōma take a moment to catch their breath, their expressions triumphant despite the bruises and sweat. Mio finally emerges from the bushes, her head bowed as she softly offers an apology to her friends. She explains her guilt over only filming the events while the two of them did all the dangerous fighting. Sōma turns to her and reassures her that her recording was more than enough, thanking her for her help. A bright smile breaks across Mio's face, her eyes shining with relief and a touch of a blush at his praise. Kaido looks at the piles of defeated thugs and asks Sōma what they should do next with their captives. Sōma doesn't answer immediately, his mind already moving toward the next stage of their intricate plan. He kneels beside one of the fallen gang members and retrieves a sleek smartphone from the man's pocket. Using the unconscious man's face to trigger the Face ID, Sōma successfully bypasses the phone's security lock. Kaido and Mio watch with intense curiosity, wondering exactly what kind of information Sōma is hoping to find. Soma's eyes narrow as he scrolls through the device, confirming with a quiet satisfaction that he has found it. He holds up the screen to show them the text messages from Tendo, which give the direct order to clean them up. They now have hard evidence that Tendo Construction and Korokai are using violence to achieve their goals. Sōma declares that the only thing left is to force Tendo to confess his connection to Assemblyman Ichijo. High above the city, the modern glass skyscraper that serves as Tendo Construction's headquarters looms ominously. Inside a luxurious office, Tendo shouts in a state of pure panic, his face pale with sudden, overwhelming shock. Sōma stands across from the desk, his calm presence filling the room with an icy, vengeful chill. Tendo trembles as he asks what kind of monster Sōma is, while a woman with crimson eyes watches from behind the boy. Sōma offers a thin, predatory smirk in response, knowing that he finally has his enemy exactly where he wants him. Sōma gazes intently at a wall covered in photographs and documents, vowing to expose every layer of corruption tied to Assemblyman Yasushi Ichijo, beginning with the mystery of his father's death. He presses his fingers against the surface of a digital screen, his resolve hardening as he prepares to dismantle the power of the men who occupy the highest seats of society. In the heavy silence of the office, Sōma sets the unlocked phone down in front of Tendo, his expression unreadable but his lethal intent perfectly clear. The screen displays the high-definition video recorded at the scrapyard, showing the Korokai gang members in the middle of their coordinated and violent assault. Sōma asks Tendo directly if he is the one who gave the orders for the criminals to attack the students. Tendo's eyes bulge behind his glasses and his face contorts with a mix of pure terror and disbelief at being cornered so effortlessly. Sōma produces another piece of evidence, a photograph of a social gathering, and suggests that the true mastermind pulling the strings is actually Assemblyman Ichijo. The sound of heavy, frantic footsteps approaching from the hallway causes Sōma to look back toward the entrance with sharp suspicion. An assistant bursts through the office doors, breathless and panicked as he announces that Assemblyman Ichijo has just called an unannounced press conference. The assistant quickly grabs the remote and powers on the television, his hand shaking as the live broadcast begins to flicker onto the screen. Soma's eye narrows into a cold slit, his mind racing to predict his enemy's next move in this dangerous game of betrayal. The room falls into a stunned silence as they watch the news, knowing that the words spoken on screen will change everything. On the broadcast, Yasushi Ichijo stands before a swarm of reporters, boldly claiming that Tendo Construction has been found guilty of maintaining improper ties with antisocial forces. Tendo is paralyzed with shock, unable to comprehend that his powerful patron has just publicly thrown him to the wolves to save himself. Tendo mutters hollowly that Ichijo has betrayed them, the reality of his ruin finally beginning to sink in. Sōma clenches his jaw in frustration, realizing that the assemblyman anticipated the threat and moved first to distance himself from the scandal. Across the city, crowds gather around public monitors as the shock of the political corruption scandal spreads through the populace. The news report provides details on the donations Ichijo's office received from the disgraced construction firm during various political fundraising events. Ichijo continues his deceptive performance, insisting that he believed those meetings were nothing more than routine discussions as part of normal support activities. Mio looks at Kaido's back, sensing the heavy burden of rage and focus he is carrying. Kaido grits his teeth in silent fury, calling his father an old bastard as he glares at the television screen. On the news, Assemblyman Yasushi Ichijo leads a formal press conference with a stern and authoritative expression. He and another official named Kaburaji announce that they will review and cancel all existing contracts with the disgraced company. In a private room, an executive slams his hand against the desk in a fit of pure desperation. The man panics, shouting that they have already signed every subcontract and have no way to escape the ruin. He despairs over the billions of yen in debt, realize that all their hard-earned capital investment is gone. Soma Sakaki stands silently in the background, observing the man's total breakdown with cold, calculating eyes. On the screen, the high-ranking officials bow deeply as they offer their formal apologies to the public. Ichijo continues his address, calling the illegal dumping of asbestos a serious crime against public health. The executive is horrified as the news reports that the authorities intend to pursue strict criminal prosecution. He collapses to his knees, gasping as he realizes that his entire life and career have just come to an end. Soma steps forward, telling the man that if things stay like this, he will be the only one forced to take the fall. He leans over the ruined executive, demanding that he hand over any evidence that can drag Ichijo down with him. The man clutches his head in despair, stammering that he simply doesn't have any information like that. Soma remains impassive, showing no sympathy for the pathetic figure groveling before him. He holds up a tablet and asks the executive if he is familiar with the infamous Who Fund. The screen displays the faces of several powerful elites, including Ichijo Yasushi and Shinomiya Mikio. The man admitted that he only invested because Ichijo and Shinomiya had recommended it to him personally. Soma's eyes narrow as he processes the confession, his mind already calculating the next step in his plan. The executive continues to tremble, pleading that he only followed orders and knows nothing beyond that. A small, mocking smile touches Soma's lips, clearly showing that he doesn't believe a word of the man's excuses. He asks if that means the man bears no responsibility, even though his actions resulted in a death. His icy gaze cuts through the man's desperate denial, forcing him to face the reality of his corruption. Soma places his hand firmly on the desk, signaling that the time for pathetic excuses has long since passed. He tells the man to go ahead and blow the whistle if he wants, as his fate is already sealed regardless. Casting a final, cold glance at the executive, he turns and walks away from the ruin he helped orchestrate. Later that day, the school bell rings across the campus of the prestigious academy. Soma notes that the man stuck his neck out only for Ichijo to cut him loose and run at the first sign of trouble. Mio remarks that it is too bad for him, and promises to keep digging for more information as they walk through the halls. They notice a group of students gathered around a commotion at the entrance, drawn by an atmosphere of desperation. Whispers spread among the students as they recognize the person currently begging for his life. It is the leader of the school bullies, now looking completely broken and begging Kaido for mercy. He grabs Kaido's jacket, desperately pleading for him to put in a good word with Assemblyman Ichijo. With a pale and sweaty face, he cries out that his family's company will be finished if they don't get help. From a distance, Mio and Soma watch the pathetic display without showing a single hint of emotion. Kaido stares down at the desperate boy, coldly remarking that it sounds like he is just getting what he deserves. He pulls his jacket away and walks past, leaving the bully's pleas unanswered and ignored. The bully is left stunned as Kaido abandons him, his last hope for salvation vanishing into the air. He stands there shaking, realizing that his world is crumbling and he has no allies left to turn to. A sharp, focused gaze from a hidden observer continues to watch his every reaction. Mio suddenly lunges forward and grabs the boy, asking with a bright but sharp smile if his father is a cop. Mio leans in close to the trembling student, her smile carrying a dark and menacing intent as she continues her interrogation. The bully can only mutter a desperate plea for her to stop, his will completely shattered by her piercing words. He gasps that if the police investigation continues, his father will surely be thrown behind bars. In response to his panic, Mio simply gives him a bright but chilling smile, seemingly delighted by his pathetic display. Standing nearby, Soma Sakaki quietly observes the exchange with a sharp gaze, his mind already calculating his next moves. He thinks back to the list of local power players he identified as being connected to the secretive Who Fund. On that list, the faces of two prominent students, President Shinomiya and his aide Sana Shiratori, stand out clearly in his memory. Sōma tells himself that they are the next targets in his plan to dismantle the corrupt organization from the inside. Mio catches up to Sōma and casually remarks that as long as the boy's father did nothing wrong, her own father will never arrest him. She walks away with a light-hearted step, leaving the disgraced student kneeling in the middle of the schoolyard in total despair. From a distance, Sana Shiratori watches them silently, her red eyes narrowed with curiosity and suspicion about Soma's true identity. Whispers begin to spread through the school hallways that the Tendo family is finished, their influence completely erased. Mio turns back and calls out to Sōma, urging him to leave quickly before they draw any more unwanted attention. Sōma follows silently, his thoughts preoccupied with the complex web of corruption he is slowly starting to unravel. He knows that while this is a small victory, the real battle to uncover the truth has only just begun. They leave behind the fallen bully, who remains slumped on the ground as other students walk past without a second glance. The focus shifts to the elite student council members, Shinomiya and Sana Shiratori, who always exude an air of untouchable authority. A luxury car pulls up to the school gates, a stark symbol of the immense wealth and power these students wield. Sōma vows to take back the life that was stolen from him by the dirty schemes of the upper class. His investigation leads him to the Shiratori General Hospital, a massive building that seems to be hiding dark secrets within its walls. He walks past the busy nurse station, doing his best to blend into the crowd as he searches for his intended target. Sōma maintains a calm expression, his eyes scanning the corridors to locate the office of the hospital director. Through the frosted glass of one of the offices, he finally catches a glimpse of the man he has been hunting. This is Shiratori Takashi, the hospital director and a prominent name on the Who Fund's list of collaborators. Sōma recalls seeing the man's face on his investigation board, placed right next to those who framed his father. He suspects that this man was one of the key masterminds behind the conspiracy that ruined his family years ago. Standing at the reception desk, Sōma waits patiently for the right moment to act, his exterior remaining perfectly composed. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him from behind, causing him to freeze in genuine surprise. Sana Shiratori appears there in her school uniform, her own face showing shock at seeing her classmate in the hospital. She addresses him by his assumed name, asking if he is indeed Takagi Sōma, while her red eyes lock onto his face. Sana curiously asks what he is doing in a place like this at such an hour, her suspicion evident in her tone. Sōma realizes that this chance encounter is completely unexpected and could put him in a very dangerous position. He forces a nervous laugh to hide his tension, trying to act as if his presence there is nothing more than a coincidence. His mind races as he remembers that Sana is the only daughter of the powerful director, Shiratori Takashi. She approaches him with confident strides, her presence as a student council executive making Sōma immediately defensive. He knows her reputation as the loyal aide to President Shinomiya, making her a formidable enemy to deal with. Sana stares at him intently, asking if he is visiting someone or if there is another secret purpose for his visit. Sōma quickly searches for a convincing excuse, knowing that even a small slip could ruin months of careful planning. A cold smile begins to form in his mind as he realizes that this meeting is actually a golden opportunity. Sana blinks in confusion, asking if Sōma just muttered something under his breath that she didn't quite catch. Sōma watches the hospital staff working around them, his plan instantly shifting to take full advantage of this new variable. His eyes suddenly flare with a faint red light as he decides to turn this chance encounter into a stepping stone toward the truth. Sana's red eyes widen as she feels a sudden, inexplicable shift in the air around her, her pupils dilating in confusion. Sōma's eye glows with a deep, unnatural crimson as he focuses his hidden ability, exerting a subtle influence over the girl standing before him. With his power taking hold, Sōma leans in and allows Sana to lose her balance, causing her to fall forward into his arms. Sana's gaze becomes glassy and unfocused as she slumps against him, her body feeling heavy and suddenly drained of all strength. Sōma holds her steadily, a faint, calculating smile playing on his lips as he ensures she is leaning fully against his shoulder. The moment is abruptly shattered by a loud exclamation as a man in a white lab coat appears at the end of the hallway. Director Shiratori Takashi stares in disbelief, his face flushing with anger at the sight of a strange boy embracing his daughter in public. He shouts out in a demanding tone, asking the young man what on earth he thinks he is doing with Sana. Sōma slowly turns his head toward the director, his expression shifting into one of innocent concern as he prepares his response. The sudden shouting causes Sana to snap out of her daze, and she gasps in horror, her face turning a deep shade of red. She frantically begs her father to wait a moment, her hands trembling as she tries to steady herself and pull away from Sōma. Takashi marches toward them with a stern expression, his eyes fixed on the young intruder who has dared to touch his daughter. Sana hides behind her father's shoulder, admitting in a small, shaky voice that she suddenly felt a wave of dizziness and fear. The director's gaze softens slightly as he looks back at his daughter, his concern for her health momentarily overriding his fury. He turns his attention back to Sōma, firmly requesting that he not approach Sana so casually ever again. Sōma listens quietly, his hands folded in front of him as he maintains a respectful and submissive posture. Takashi makes it clear that Sana is already promised to a suitable match, a young man from the prestigious Shinomiya family. Sōma quickly bows his head and offers a sincere-sounding apology for causing such a misunderstanding and worrying the director. He smoothly explains that Sana looked as if she were about to collapse, so he only moved to catch her before she fell. Sana quickly confirms his story, nodding her head vigorously and telling her father that the boy is absolutely right. She takes the opportunity to introduce him properly, identifying him to her father as her classmate, Asagi Sōma. Sōma offers a bright, cheerful smile that perfectly masks the cold calculation hidden beneath his friendly exterior. A long, awkward silence follows as the director carefully studies the polite young man standing before him. Takashi eventually clears his throat and admits that he overreacted, asking for Sōma's forgiveness for his sudden outburst. Sōma brushes it off with a humble remark, saying that the director's reaction only proves how much he loves his daughter. Sana remains quiet, her expression troubled as she tries to understand why her body reacted so strangely just moments ago. Takashi is impressed by the boy's maturity, noting that such composure is exactly what he expects from a Shiho Academy student. He points out that standing in the middle of a busy hospital hallway is not ideal and that they are attracting too much attention. He suggests that the three of them should go somewhere more private where they can sit down and speak properly. Sana is visibly shocked by her father's suggestion, asking him why he would even think of inviting a stranger into his office. Takashi reveals that he is an alumnus of Shiho Academy himself, and wants to make a proper apology for his earlier rudeness. Sana tries one last time to intervene, forcefully suggesting that Asagi-kun probably has other things to do and shouldn't be kept. Sōma quickly dismisses her concern with a broad grin, assuring them both that his schedule for the afternoon is completely open. Takashi declares the matter settled and tells the young man to follow him, leading the way toward the executive wing. Sana lets out a defeated sigh, her shoulders slumping as she realizes she has no choice but to follow along with her father's whim. As he walks behind them, Soma's thoughts turn dark, noting that the time has finally come for him to make his true introduction. He looks ahead at the director's back, his eyes narrowing with a sharp, predatory focus as he enters the next phase of his plan. They arrive at the director's office, a spacious and elegantly furnished room where they settle onto the comfortable sofas for tea. Sōma begins the conversation by politely asking Sana if she spends a lot of her free time helping out at the hospital. Takashi interrupts with a proud smile, stating his intention to eventually leave the hospital's future in his daughter's capable hands. Sōma nods in understanding, turning his attention to the director as he prepares to steer the conversation toward his true goals. Takashi lets out a hearty laugh, adding that since she is a member of the Shiratori family, her path to leadership is already predetermined. Sōma bows his head slightly, offering a polite apology for the intrusion while maintaining a calm, controlled demeanor. He turns his attention towards Sana, noting that she seems to be carrying quite a burden for someone her age. Sōma comments on how impressive it is that she is already accompanying the director to learn the intricate details of running a major hospital. Sana remains silent, taking a slow sip of her tea as she avoids eye contact, her expression unreadable. She admits that she still has a long way to go, but she is determined to do her best so that her father will finally acknowledge her. Sōma offers a warm, encouraging smile, appearing as the perfect image of a supportive classmate. He brings up the rumors of her dating student council president Shinomiya Soji, remarking that their combined future looks exceptionally bright. Director Takashi listens with a satisfied hum, while Sana looks away, her discomfort becoming more apparent. Sōma notes that Shinomiya is the heir to the massive Shinomiya Group, a powerhouse in railways and urban development. He paints a picture of the immense potential if such a corporate giant were to join forces with a major medical institution like Shiratori General Hospital. Sana and her father stand before the backdrop of their family legacy, each harboring very different thoughts about the partnership Sōma describes. Sōma laughs softly, stating that the future of the entire city would be looking very bright under such an alliance. Takashi is clearly impressed, telling Sōma that he truly seems to understand the bigger picture of their societal roles. The director explains that as the city expands and the population grows, the demand for their healthcare services will only continue to rise. Sana's expression darkens as she points out that it doesn't sound very ideal to be so happy about the prospect of more people getting sick. Takashi counters sternly, telling his daughter that while she may be right, a perspective focused on management is necessary for their survival. He reminds her that running a business of this scale is far harsher than she realizes, requiring a certain level of emotional detachment. The director emphasizes that day and night, it is a constant struggle with numbers, relationships, and the crushing weight of responsibility. Sana glares at him, her frustration boiling over as she asks if he is simply trying to tell her that the job is too difficult for her to handle. Director Shiratori Takashi tells Sana not to be ridiculous as they discuss her future. He encourages his daughter, telling her that if anyone can handle it, she can, and that is why she must learn how the hospital is run. Sitting nearby, Sōma Sakaki calmly sips his tea while observing the interaction. He silently repeats the name of the facility, Shiratori General Hospital, as he focuses on his mission. He notes that the hospital receives significant subsidies from both the prefecture and the city. Sōma suspects that, much like Tenda construction, there might be proof of Ichijo's backroom deals hidden within these walls. He believes there are clues regarding rigged allocations and special treatment for those in power. He is convinced that information about the WHO fund is hidden somewhere in this very room. The director is suddenly interrupted by his phone vibrating on the desk. He turns away to answer the call, asking the person on the other end what the emergency is. After a brief exchange, he tells the caller that he will be there right away. He apologizes to Sōma, explaining that he needs to step out of the room for a moment. As the director heads for the door, Sōma suggests that since they are here, the man should take 30 minutes to get some fresh air. With a flash of red in his eyes, Sōma activates his ALIUS power, and the director mindlessly agrees to take a walk. Once the director is gone, Sōma decides it is time to act. Sana looks at him with a confused expression, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Sōma tells her it is time to start the investigation. He apologizes to Sana for having to use her again, but states that he needs her cooperation as his eyes flare red. He begins frantically flipping through the stacks of documents on the director's desk. He notes that the books and approval forms all seem to have numbers that line up perfectly. Sōma stands over the desk in frustration, unable to find any trace of fraud in the records. Sana remains perfectly still, her eyes glowing red while she is under his mental control. Sōma begins to sweat, wondering if he has hit a complete dead end in his search for the truth. He slams his hand onto the paperwork, desperate to uncover something. Suddenly, something catches his attention, and he realizes he has found exactly what he was looking for. He finds an envelope addressed to Shiratori Takashi that clearly mentions the WHO fund. He picks up the letter, confirming that his suspicions about the director were correct. He realizes that Director Shiratori is indeed involved with the investment fund. The door suddenly opens, and Sōma panics, wondering why the director is back so soon. He checks his watch, noting it is only 11:52 and the man shouldn't have returned for another 20 minutes. With no time to hide, Sōma realizes he has only one move left to make. His eyes burn with a crimson light as he prepares a desperate distraction. Director Shiratori stumbles in, rubbing his head and complaining that he got dizzy and hit his head in the garden. A psychic command tells him to lean on someone, and he looks up in confusion. Papers scatter through the air as the director tries to steady himself. A hand reaches out to pin someone down on the furniture. The director is absolutely shocked to see Sana leaning over Sōma in a seemingly intimate embrace on the couch. Sana stares down, her eyes still red as she is used as a puppet in Soma's staged scene. The director demands to know what they are doing in such a state. Sōma looks up, pretending to be caught off guard while calling out Sana's name in faint embarrassment. Sana blinks as the red light fades from her eyes, looking around in a daze. They lock eyes in a tense, silent standoff after the director's sudden intrusion. Sana screams in shock as she realizes the compromising position she was just in. She quickly jumps away from Sōma, her face burning with embarrassment, as she stands over him. Director Shiratori Takashi stands in the doorway in disbelief while Sana panics about why she was in that position. She tries to explain the situation to her father, but he is already assuming the worst about her and Sōma. Deeply embarrassed, she stammers that it is all a misunderstanding, while Sōma realizes he managed to bluff his way through. Sōma remains silent, letting her handle the awkward explanation alone. Sōma recalls that a strong blow to the head can sometimes break his brainwashing, which explains the director's sudden return. He makes a mental note of this weakness to avoid future mistakes. As evening falls, the sun sets over Shiratori General Hospital. Sōma walks alone through a quiet park, reflecting on the day's events. He stops to examine the evidence he stole, wondering what secrets it holds. He pulls out the Who Fund envelope, his expression serious. He carefully opens the letter to read its contents. He remains silent as he processes the information he has just uncovered. He realizes that Tendo's excuses were lies and that he finally sees the truth behind their scheme. The picture of the conspiracy is finally starting to come together. The letter claims the Who Fund returns profits to the region through its various investments. It invites the recipient to a reception to introduce a new large-scale investment opportunity. Comparing this to his father's notebook, Sōma finds the evidence he needs. He knows that despite the flowery language, there is a sinister reality behind the fund. He realizes they are actually laundering money for the underworld under the guise of an investment firm. With a determined look, he vows to drag them out by the tail, even if it is the last thing he does. Later, Sōma meets with Kaido and Mio at a cafe, telling them that he has found a new lead. He slides the Who Fund envelope onto the table for them to see. Kaido asks about the Who Fund, while Mio looks on with a curious expression. Sōma explains it is an investment fund that ties the local elites together with money, and a party for it is coming soon. Mio is visibly shocked by the revelation, while Kaido remains focused. Sōma studies the guest list, knowing someone on it is the key to everything. He declares that the Who Fund is the source of the rot festering in the region. His primary goal remains finding the person who framed his father and destroyed his family. Mio admit that this is an incredible lead for their investigation. Sōma adds that only promising members of the Shoujo Academy's student council are permitted to attend the event. He shows them the specific section of the letter that mentions the restricted access. He explains that the Who Fund is apparently made up of Shoujo Academy alumni. This means student council officers like Shinomiya and Sana are allowed into that elite circle while they are still young. Kaito grumbles that such a special privilege really rubs him the wrong way. He turns to Sōma and asks where exactly he managed to get this classified information. Sōma remains quiet for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he considers how much to reveal. He tells Kaido that he can't disclose his source, prompting Kaido to ask if he is hiding something from them. Sōma insists that it isn't a matter of keeping secrets, as he clasps his hands. He recalls his cold words to Sana earlier, where he told her that he doesn't trust her and was only using her. Holding the letter, Sōma knows that even with his allies, there are parts of this fight he must carry alone. Mio tries to defuse the tension in the cafe, suggesting that Sōma must have his own valid reasons for staying quiet. Kaito repeats the word with a heavy dose of skepticism, his eyes narrowing as he glares at Sōma. He challenges Sōma, stating that if there isn't anything shady going on, he should be able to speak freely. Sōma closes his eyes, thinking that while he wants to share everything, the timing simply isn't right yet. Suddenly, Kaito stands up and declares that this is as far as they go together, shocking Mio. He vents his frustration, saying he can't stand that kind of secretive behavior. Sōma remains remarkably calm, thanking Kaito for everything he has done up to this point and refusing to stop him. Kaito storms out of the cafe, leaving a heavy silence behind as Mio watches him go. Mio is left speechless, her face pale with worry over the sudden rift between her companions. The scene shifts to a grand, classical-style building surrounded by manicured grounds. Looking at the structure, Mio explains that it is a members-only club where the city's most powerful figures gather. She notes that it is the perfect environment for making backroom deals away from public scrutiny. Sōma looks on with a sharp gaze, concluding that this must be the meeting place for the Who Fund members. He observes the airtight security, from the cameras to the stony-faced guards stationed at every entrance. Standing together outside the gates, Sōma and Mio discuss the difficulty of gaining entry. Sōma realizes that to get inside, he will have to find a way to join their exclusive fraternity. Later at the academy, the hallway buzzes with whispers as the elite student council members pass by. The council officers, led by the arrogant Shinomiya, walk with an air of untouchable authority. Mio speaks with Soma in the hall, noting that with his status as the Asagi heir, joining the inner circle should be easy. Soma offers a small smile, mentioning his official cover story of having been studying abroad until recently. Mio looks at him doubtfully, her expression suggesting she isn't entirely convinced by his story. She gestures to his school bag, pointing out that someone who truly studied abroad wouldn't need so many translation notes in their English books. She openly wonders if he ever actually went overseas at all, while Soma looks away awkwardly. Soma eventually makes his way to the student council room, where the officers are gathered. Shinomiya pauses and looks back, his interest piqued by the newcomer's arrival. He greets Soma with a condescending smirk, acknowledging him as the heir to the Asagi family. He mentions that he has already heard plenty about him from Sana, who stands nearby. Soma doesn't waste any time, looking Shinomiya in the eye and stating that he wants to join the fraternity. The other council members are instantly offended, accusing Soma of being rude and wasting the president's time. Shinomiya raises a hand to quiet his subordinates, keeping his eyes fixed on Soma. He explains that student council officers are typically elected, a process Soma has missed. With a boastful gesture, he adds that only a chosen few with impeccable character and grades are ever invited into the fraternity. He points out that Soma is a transfer student and the next elections won't take place until next year. Soma asks if the president can't use his special discretion to grant him an exception. Shinomiya's smirk fades as he asks if Soma truly believes he is someone who deserves such special treatment. Soma meets his gaze with a confident smile, asserting that he wouldn't be standing there if he didn't believe it. Shinomiya stares at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Suddenly, he bursts into loud laughter, seemingly delighted by Soma's sheer audacity. He decides that for that display of courage, he will make an exception for him, much to the shock of the others. However, his expression turns cunning as he tells Soma he will first have to pass a difficult entrance exam. Soma remains silent, his determination only hardening at the prospect of a test. Shinomiya leads the way out, promising to welcome Soma into the fraternity if he manages to pass with flying colors. Soma Sakaki reflects on his progress, noting with satisfaction that he has finally gained a crucial foothold. He offers a polite word of thanks as Shinomiya prepares to reveal the details of the upcoming exam. With a sharp and confident smile, Shinomiya explains that he needs to verify if Soma is truly worthy of joining their exclusive circle. He asserts that as an executive, he cannot tolerate any secrets being kept from him, a condition that Soma stoically accepts. Shinomiya sets the time frame for the challenge, stating that the trial will last for exactly 1 week. He warns Soma that he will be under their constant observation 24 hours a day, a prospect that leaves Soma looking resolute. The weight of the situation sinks in as Soma realizes he will be subjected to a full week of unrelenting surveillance. A montage of his greatest secrets flashes through his mind: his father's scandal, the theft of Asagi Soma's identity, and the nature of his ALIUS ability. Despite the immense risk of exposure, he determines that he has no choice but to push through the ordeal. He gazes toward the student council room, convinced that this path is the only way to reach the truth about the Who Fund. Shinomiya watches him with a mocking smirk, asking if the daunting conditions have made him want to back out. Without a trace of hesitation, Soma flatly refuses the suggestion that he might quit. He firmly declares his intention to undergo the entrance exam, his eyes burning with a fierce sense of purpose. While the other council members watch with mixed expressions, Soma remains undaunted by the challenges that lie ahead. Standing firm before the president, he silently vows to clear every hurdle they place in his path. The scene shifts to the imposing entrance of Shiratori General Hospital, where a new shadow looms. Nearby, Kaito notes that Soma has been making frequent and suspicious trips to the medical facility. He watches from a distance with a serious expression, deeply troubled by what Soma might be doing at the hospital. As the sun rises over a traditional estate, the fateful fraternity entrance exam officially begins. Soma Sakaki stares into the mirror, adjusting his school uniform. He knows that if he wants to get revenge for his father, getting into the fraternity is his only way in. He checks the specialized device on his wrist, the screen glowing as it counts down the time he has left to maintain his cover. A cold thought crosses his mind as he realizes he'll have to brainwash the woman playing his mother again very soon to keep the secret safe. His plans are interrupted by a sleek black car pulling up outside the house. Sana Shiratori steps out, looking like she's there on official business. Sōma watches from the window, his pulse quickening. He wonders if this is actually the fraternity coming to pick him up ahead of schedule. He doesn't waste a second, racing down the wooden stairs to meet them before they can suspect anything. He stops in the living room, realizing that the 24-hour surveillance he was told about is very much real. His hand goes straight for a juice box on the counter, his mind already spinning with a plan to handle the situation. His mother is right there at the door, but the clock is ticking. His ALIUS brainwashing only lasts 24 hours and it's about to wear off. He walks toward her, knowing he hasn't had the chance to renew the mental lock on her mind since the previous day. The tension mounts as Sana walks right in, and the two women come face to face in the doorway. Sana smiles politely, greeting him as a sage-icon right in front of the one person who knows his real identity. His mother looks confused, the name Asage-icon sounding foreign and wrong to her ears as she stares at her son. Sōma breaks into a cold sweat, his eyes darting between them as he realizes Sana is watching his reaction closely. He glances at his wrist device again, the pressure to act now or lose everything becoming unbearable. He stands frozen for a beat, wondering how on earth he's supposed to brainwash both of them at once without being caught. Left with no other choice, he activates his power, his eyes flaring with a menacing crimson light. He catches both of their gazes, the mental weight of his ALIUS beginning to bear down on the room as he addresses them. He offers them the juice with a strained smile, using the simple gesture as a medium for his influence. They both reach out and take the drinks, their movements becoming sluggish as the power takes hold. He watches them drink, satisfied that his first attempt at simultaneous multi-target brainwashing was a success. He turns his head away, catching his breath as the strain of the ability starts to take a physical toll. As Sana takes a sip, he knows her memories of this entire interaction will be wiped clean once the process is complete. The red aura of his power flares out, completely dominating their minds as he prepares to rewrite their reality. With his eyes burning bright red, he commands the woman, telling her that she is his mother, and he is her son. Her eyes reflect that same red glow, her expression going blank as she accepts the false truth he's planting. Sana stands there looking dazed for a moment, her thoughts being scrubbed by the overwhelming power of the ALIUS. A moment later, the mother turns to her with a normal smile, asking if she's one of Sōma's classmates. She smiles warmly, thanking the girl for coming all this way to pick him up for school. Sōma lets out a shaky breath, finally able to relax now that the secret is safe for another day. He later sits in the back of the car with Sana, the atmosphere between them heavy and silent as they drive. He stares out the window, realizing that 24-hour surveillance doesn't mean she has to be glued to him every second. Sana tells him that such a thing would be impossible anyway, her eyes closed as she rests in the seat. She clarifies that the president only asked her to come and get him this morning, nothing more. Sōma looks over at her, asking if she has any advice for someone trying to navigate the academy. She stays silent for a moment, her lips pursed as she considers her words carefully before speaking. She warns him not to lie, because the man in charge is the type who can see straight through anyone. They arrive at the impressive academy building, a place where even the entrance exam is a gauntlet of various trials. Sōma finds himself in the middle of a group session, where students are grilled on conflict resolution and negotiation skills. He catches the eye of Shinomiya, who is watching the new guy with a look of pure condescension from the side. While at the vending machines, another student lectures him on the importance of English skills and social responsibility. During the physical drills, Sōma stays sharp, his eyes scanning for any potential hazards as he maneuvers through the exercise. Sōma Sakaki is working hard to build a flawless reputation, showing off his community-minded leadership by volunteering to pick up trash with a smile. But his skills don't stop at community service. His athletic ability is just as impressive as he dominates on the tennis court. He puts every ounce of focus into his game, determined to prove that he belongs at the top of the academy's social ladder. The ball snaps across the court with perfect precision, hitting the line exactly where he intended. From the other side of the net, Shinomiya watches with a cold, analytical gaze, clearly sizing up the newcomer's potential. Sōma is dripping with sweat, feeling the weight of the senior's eyes on him as he tries to maintain his composure. Sana Shiratori observes the matches silently, her reserved expression hiding whatever she might be thinking about Soma's performance. The final day of the entrance exam gauntlet finally arrives, marking the end of a long and grueling week. Soma starts the morning with his usual polite facade, greeting his fellow student as they prepare to head out. Sana is already waiting for him by the car, her gaze lingering on him as he approaches. In the back of the luxury vehicle, the two sit in a tense silence before Sana finally breaks the ice. She tells him that he did well over the past week, offering a rare bit of praise for his efforts. However, she quickly shifts the mood by mentioning that Shinomiya-senpai wants to have a private word with him today. Soma's expression hardens as he realizes that the most dangerous part of his plan is about to begin. He stares at the imposing academy building, knowing that if he succeeds today, he'll finally be within reach of the Hu Fund. As he walks through the grand hallways, he keeps his focus sharp, aware that every move he makes is being watched. Mio spots him and rushes over, her pink hair bobbing as she flashes a supportive smile. She cheers him on with infectious energy, trying to bolster his spirits before his big meeting with the council. Soma offers her a small, grateful smile, but his mind is already miles ahead, calculating his next move. He continues down the hallway, his footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor as the weight of his mission settles on his shoulders. The mood shifts instantly when Kaido appears, his intense gaze fixed solely on Soma as he steps out from the shadows. Kaido reveals that he paid a visit to the hospital, his voice cold as he implies he's found something he wasn't supposed to. Soma's heart hammers against his ribs, his composure nearly shattering at the mention of the hospital. He feels a sudden surge of panic, the reality of his stolen identity threatening to come crashing down around him. Before he can react, Kaido grabs him roughly by the collar, demanding to know who he really is and what game he's playing. His grip is iron tight as he confronts the imposter, his frustration boiling over in the middle of the school. Mio and Sana watch the confrontation in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the sudden rift between the two boys. Kaido eventually lets go, but his eyes remain fixed on Soma, filled with a new and dangerous level of suspicion. Mio looks worriedly at Soma, sensing that the fragile peace they've maintained is beginning to crumble. Soma is left reeling, a single bead of sweat rolling down his face as he tries to process Kaido's discovery. The group continues on their way, but Soma can't help but wonder if Kaido has already figured out that the real Asagi Soma is still out there. Sana notices his distress and softly asks if he's okay, but her concern only makes him feel more like an outsider. He coughs into his hand, a sudden wave of nausea washing over him as the pressure of the week finally hits its peak. He forces out a reply that he's fine, but the strain in his voice is impossible to ignore. They finally reach the entrance to the student council room, the final stop on his journey to the heart of the academy. Inside, Shinomiya is waiting behind a massive desk, telling Soma that he has officially passed the entrance exam. Soma bows deeply, offering his sincere thanks for being given such a prestigious opportunity. But the celebration is short-lived as Shinomiya's gloved hand rests on the table, signaling that the conversation isn't over. The senior's tone turns cold as he says he has one final concern that he needs to clear up before they proceed. He leans back and crosses his arms, looking Soma directly in the eye with a terrifyingly knowing smile. Shinomiya promises to let him into the inner circle, but only if Soma can explain his mysterious influence over others. He leans in close and whispers the devastating question, asking how Soma is able to make everyone follow his orders without question. Shinomiya's voice is low and dangerous as he suggests that Soma has the uncanny ability to brainwash anyone he chooses. He lets out a soft, mocking laugh, his eyes glinting with the thrill of having uncovered what he believes is Soma's greatest weakness. Soma stands perfectly still, his pulse quickening as he wonders how the president could have possibly pieced the truth together. His thoughts race to Sana, wondering if her memory was as wiped as he intended, or if some fragment of his control remained. The question of how Shinomiya learned about his brainwashing ability hangs heavy in the air, threatening to derail everything he's worked for. Soma's jaw tightens as the realization hits him that he's been played, and he's now standing on the edge of a total exposure. Shinomiya paces slowly, stating that there is one final thing he must confirm before he can officially approve Soma's membership into the council. He brings up the incident where Soma supposedly ordered Sana to push him down, his voice dripping with feigned concern for the girl's well-being. Sana, sitting at her desk, can only look on in silent mortification as her traumatic experience is turned into an interrogation point. Shinomiya leans into Soma's personal space, whispering a challenge to his power and asking if he can truly make people move exactly as he desires. He stands tall and addresses the room, remarking that forcing physical contact on a girl is a display of poor character that the Academy cannot tolerate. Sana looks away, her eyes filling with a mixture of shame and confusion as she's forced to relive a moment she barely understands. Soma realizes with a start that Sana shouldn't remember any of that, meaning Shinomiya's source of information must be external. Shinomiya continues to spin his hypothetical web, enjoying the way Soma seems to be shrinking under the weight of the accusation. He points out that if Soma was indeed threatening her into obedience, it would be a massive scandal for the entire student council. A cold realization dawns on Soma as he understands exactly what the president has been doing behind the scenes. He cuts through the president's lecture, boldly asking what Shinomiya himself has to say about the ethics of his own hidden actions. The tension in the room reaches a breaking point, the air thick with the unspoken conflict between the two ambitious students. Soma suddenly lunges towards Sana, his sudden movement causing a collective gasp from the observers in the room. He slams his hand against the desk next to her, pinning her in place with a predatory intensity that freezes her where she sits. Sana looks up at him, her voice trembling as she calls out his name, terrified by the sudden change in his demeanor. Soma's eyes burn with an otherworldly red light as he activates the ALIUS, coldly commanding Sana to drench herself with the water from the vase. Without a second of hesitation, Sana's hand reaches out for the blue vase, her body no longer under her own control. Shinomiya's composure shatters as he realizes Soma is actually demonstrating his power, and he shouts out for Sana to stop. But the command is absolute. Sana appends the vase over her own head, a cascade of cold water drenching her hair and school uniform. The sound of the splashing water is the only thing heard in the stunned silence that follows Sana's inexplicable act of self-humiliation. As the water pours over her, a small golden pin is washed away from her collar, falling toward the floor with a soft metallic chime. The golden wing-shaped accessory bounces off the floorboards, coming to rest right in the center of the room. Soma bends down and picks up the object, his eyes fixed on Shinomiya with a look of absolute, icy triumph. He holds the device up, identifying it as a high-powered listening device that was used to record every word spoken near Sana. Shinomiya's face goes pale, the smugness completely drained away as he realizes his own illegal surveillance has been dragged into the light. Sana slowly comes back to her senses, blinking in confusion as she realizes she's soaking wet and the room is in a state of shock. She stares down at her drenched clothes, her face turning a deep shade of red as the sheer humiliation of the moment sinks in. Shivering from the cold and the shame, she wonders why she would ever do something so bizarre in front of the entire council. Soma turns the device over in his hand, his silence more damning than any verbal accusation he could make against the president. The other council members exchange panicked looks, realizing that their leader has just been caught in a scandalous breach of privacy. Sana remains frozen, her eyes fixed on the floor as she grapples with the realization that she was being used as a human microphone. Soma flatly states that Shinomiya has been using this bug to eavesdrop on Sana's everyday life, exposing the president's true nature. Sana looks up at the president, her expression one of pure, heartbroken betrayal at the hands of someone she was supposed to trust. Soma sneers at the heir of the Shinomiya group, mocking him for having such a pathetic and desperate wiretapping hobby. He offers a simple deal. If Shinomiya wants to keep this scandal from getting out, he will approve Soma's membership immediately. Broken and with no cards left to play, Shinomiya looks away and mutters his defeat, acknowledging that Soma has won this round. Shinomiya throws his head back and laughs, extending his hand to seal the deal and welcoming Soma Sakaki into his inner circle. He looks at Soma with an air of superiority, confirming that he will personally authorize his membership into the fraternity. Reaching for the golden badge on his own chest, Shinomiya invites Soma to a high-profile party scheduled for the following week. He shoots a mocking glance at Sana Shiratori, promising to replace her bugged accessory with a new, clean badge. His voice turns cold as he leans toward her, asking if she would prefer the easier path of resigning from the group entirely. Sana stands there, drenched and humiliated, while Soma watches the cruel exchange with a look of quiet calculation. Droplets of water fall from her hair as she clenches her jaw, struggling to maintain her composure under the weight of the president's gaze. With a sudden surge of defiance, Sana declares that she will stay and accept the new badge, refusing to let Shinomiya drive her out. The president responds with a smug, knowing smile, satisfied that he has successfully reasserted his dominance over her. He turns on his heel and strides away down the corridor, leaving an oppressive silence between the two remaining students. A short time later, Sana stands alone in the elevator, her damp uniform clinging to her, as she stares blankly at the metal doors. Soma breaks the silence by draping his own jacket over her shoulders, gently telling her that she should use it to ward off the cold. She looks up at him in surprise, the simple act of care catching her completely off guard after the evening's harshness. When Soma asks if she's angry, Sana admits she never suspected the president was spying on her, but her expression remains resigned. She explains that the status and connections gained from her association with Shinomiya are far more valuable than her own personal feelings. Soma counters her logic, describing the immense political power that would result if the Shinomiya group and her family's hospital were to unite. Sana's breath hitches as he repeats the empty promise that such an alliance would ensure a bright future for the entire city. He stares into her eyes and demands to know if that corporate goal is truly worth the sacrifice of her entire life and identity. Sana can only stare back at him, her face flushing as the weight of his question and his unexpected concern begins to break through her defenses. Flashback to the school days when things were simpler. Soma invites Hina Shinomiya to a party, joking that since he's already being a nuisance, she might as well join him. Hina blushes and brushes him off, telling him she'll think about it as she walks away. Back in the present, a younger version of Soma stands in the dark, his expression cold and unreadable. In a dimly lit room, someone is digging through the past, piecing together a dangerous puzzle. Inspector Yasuda holds up a school photo, realizing he's finally tracked down the alias known as Soma Sakaki. He realizes the boy used his abilities for something far more drastic than simple mischief. He stole someone else's entire identity. The weight of that revelation hangs heavy in the air. Outside, the sky opens up as a torrential downpour begins. Soma walks through the rainy streets, isolated under his clear umbrella. He looks tired, weighed down by the secrets he's carrying. In the shadows of a nearby alley, a hooded figure watches his every move. Kaido watches from the distance, frustrated and wondering what his friend is still hiding from everyone. The two move through the rain, a silent pursuit through the wet city. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the sound of the rain, calling out to Takagi Sōma. Soma stops dead in his tracks, wondering how anyone could possibly know his real name. Hiding nearby, Kaido's eyes go wide when he hears that unfamiliar name being used. An older man stands on the stairs, holding a voice box to his scarred throat as he says he's been looking for Soma for a long time. They stand there in silence, the rain pouring down as they size each other up. Soma asks who the hell he is, and the man identifies himself as Ashida. Ashida isn't there to chat. He says he's here to give Soma a warning. He tells Soma to stop using his ability immediately. Right now. If he doesn't, Ashida warns that someone will eventually come to slit his throat and kill him. Soma is stunned. That's the exact warning his father used to give him. He demands to know how much Ashida actually knows about his situation. Ashida notes that Soma has clearly heard the story before. He reveals that a select group within the government and police has started hunting down people like them, the ALIUS, once again. Soma is visibly shaken by the mention of the ALIUS. In the shadows, Kaido listens in, confused by this strange name for what they are. Soma stares at the horizontal scar on Ashida's neck and asks about it. Ashida simply confirms his suspicion. Yes, they did this to him. He says they forcibly removed his vocal cords to silence him. And now, they don't even hesitate to kill their targets outright. Soma realizes that if this man is being hunted, he's in the crosshairs too. Ashida admits he's been on the run, forced to abandon everyone important to him just to survive. He considers this warning his only way of atoning for his past. He tells Soma straight up that he's in serious danger right now. Ashida warns him again that he could be killed for no reason at all if he continues like this. The silence between them is only broken by the sound of the falling rain. Soma looks away, quietly thanking the man for the warning. Ashida looks him in the eye, asking if he actually understands what he's being told. Soma nods, saying he understands the risks perfectly. But his gaze is firm. He's not stopping, no matter what they do to him. He thinks about how the world branded him a criminal, even though his father was the most honest person he knew and never once abused his power. As he walks through the heavy rain, he reminds himself that he finally has a chance to get close to the people who framed his family. He clenches his fist tightly, determined to take his revenge and clear his father's name once and for all. Ashida follows him down the steps, questioning if Soma's father would really want this if it only leads to his son being killed. The older man stares at him through the downpour, his voice box making his words sound mechanical and eerie. Soma recalls his father leaving him a specific notebook, a legacy he can't ignore. He turns to Ashida with a cold gaze, stating that his mind is already made up and this is his final answer. In his heart, he knows he's the only one left who can truly clear his father's reputation. Ashida watches him with a grim expression, eventually agreeing but warning him that things are about to get much worse. He tells Soma to be extremely careful as they navigate the dark, wet streets. He emphasizes that he must never let anyone realize he's an ALIUS, because the hunt for their kind is intensifying. Soma looks down, quietly promising that he'll be careful as the rain continues to hammer down. Ashida stops and watches him walk away, telling him to make sure he stays alive. Unbeknownst to them, Kaido is standing in a nearby alleyway, watching the entire exchange with a guarded look. He stays silent, his eyes fixed on Soma as he tries to process what he's just seen. Soma keeps walking, the man's words about the hunt for ALIUS echoing in his mind. He grips his chest, realizing with a chill that he might very well be the next person on their list. Even so, the fire for revenge is too strong for him to simply turn his back now. He continues his lonely walk through the storm, refusing to let go of the path he's chosen. Kaito watches him disappear into the distance, repeating the name Takagi Sōma under his breath. He wonders who this person he thought he knew actually is, and what other secrets he's hiding. Later on, Soma sits in a quiet diner, staring out the window at the rain as he gets lost in his own head. Mio leans over the table and calls out to him, wondering why he's spacing out so much. He quickly snaps out of it and apologizes, turning his focus back to the business at hand. He tells her that on the day of the upcoming party, the WHO Fund's portfolio manager is expected to be there. Spreading a map across the table, he explains that if they can access that manager's PC, they can trace all the dirty money flows. He looks at Mio, hoping she follows the logic of his plan. Mio suggests a better way, explaining that if they can read the network's ARP table, they can set up a mirroring session. She goes on about copying their screen, but Soma just stares at her, clearly not understanding a word of the technical jargon. He admits that she knows an incredible amount about this stuff, while Mio just gives a sheepish smile. Soma's expression softens as he says he can't drag her into this, knowing that one mistake could blow everything up. Mio continues her technical explanation, pointing out that the ARP table is where cached info is stored. She laughs at him, telling him he's absolutely hopeless when it comes to computers. Eventually, she smiles and agrees to help him out despite the risks. Soma lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding, saying that hearing her say that is a huge relief. They sit together in the cozy light of the diner, two partners finalizing a plan that could change everything. The scene cuts to the night of the gala, where a grand mansion stands illuminated against the dark city skyline. The day of the WHO Fund party finally arrives, and guests in formal wear begin to arrive at the entrance. A long black limousine pulls up to the red carpet, bringing in the high-profile attendees for the night. Soma steps out of the car, looking sharp in a suit as he escorts Hina Shinomiya toward the building. Under the glow of a full moon, they prepare to enter the lion's den and begin their mission. Guests mingle and talk in the grand hall, their voices blending into a low hum of excitement as the gala begins. Shinomiya strides into the room with an air of absolute confidence, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd for anyone of note. Whispers ripple through the guests as they remark that the future head of the Shinomiya group is truly on another level, while some women can't help but find him incredibly dreamy. The blond young man lets out a smug huff, clearly enjoying the attention and the silent power he holds over the entire room. Outside the grand mansion, the low rumble of an arriving vehicle signifies the presence of more high-profile attendees. Soma enters the gala with Hina Shinomiya on his arm, both of them maintaining a calm and serious composure as they step into the light. Nearby guests are immediately struck by their presence, commenting quietly to one another about what a perfectly matched couple they appear to be. From a distance, Shinomiya narrows his eyes as he watches the pair, his silence suggesting a deep and calculated interest in their arrival. A pair of polished shoes clicks softly against the plush red carpet as a guest moves toward the heart of the prestigious event. Soma and Hina make their way through the lobby, heading directly toward the reception desk to officially check in for the evening. Soma stands before the counter, observing the staff as they process the guest list on their laptops with practiced efficiency. He offers a polite greeting to the attendant, all while his eyes dart around to scan the room for any potential threats or familiar faces. In the main hall, Yasushi Ichijo, the assemblyman heading the Who Fund, stands with his eldest son and right-hand man, Shiro Ichijo. Mikio Shinomiya, the chairman of the railway group, is also present. Soma recognizes these as some of the highest priority names from his father's secret notebook. Watching them from the side, Soma thinks about how he has finally managed to get within arm's reach of the powerful men he's been hunting. He continues to play his part perfectly, escorting Hina through the crowd as they blend in seamlessly with the other elite guests. Adjusting his collar to reach his hidden microphone, he quietly informs Mio that he has successfully made it inside the venue. Outside in the dark, Mio confirms that she has received his signal and tells him to stay focused and stick strictly to their plan. Inside the ballroom, a delicate hand reaches out and rests in another's as the music for the dance floor begins to swell. Soma and Hina move onto the floor, swaying together among dozens of other couples under the warm, shimmering glow of the chandeliers. Hina notices his stiff movements and asks if he isn't much of a fan of dancing, to which Soma admits that it's not really his thing. She looks up at him with a mix of curiosity and doubt, wondering what the man she knows as a sage-eye Soma is truly thinking behind that stoic mask. She reflects on the unsettling fact that whenever she is with him, there are moments where her own memories seem to just vanish into thin air. She recalls a time in the past when his words felt like a desperate attempt to break her free from some invisible curse. In her memory, he once looked at her and asked if sacrificing her own life was truly worth whatever goals she was pursuing. She looks away from him, feeling a sudden and deep surge of uncertainty about how she actually feels toward the man standing before her. The two of them continue their dance in silence, a palpable tension hanging between them as they maintain their social charade. Soma catches her intense gaze and asks if there is something wrong, offering a small, practiced smile to put her at ease. Hina's expression turns grave as she warns him that he absolutely shouldn't let his guard down around that man. Soma follows her gaze and spots the blonde Shinomiya standing across the room, watching them with a cold and piercing intensity. Shinomiya takes a slow, deliberate sip of his red wine, his face masked in a terrifyingly calm and superior expression. Hina explains that Shinomiya-senpai is certainly not the type to take a humiliation lying down, and will surely find a way to retaliate. Soma absorbs the warning and tells her that he will certainly keep that in mind as the evening progresses. She remains silent, her eyes filled with a heavy concern she can't quite voice as she continues to stare at him. The hum of conversation fills the ballroom as the prestigious guests wait for the next major event of the evening. On the far end of the room, Shinomiya detaches himself from the crowd and begins to walk up onto the main stage. Hina's heart skips a beat as she watches him, wondering what her senior could possibly be planning to do in front of everyone. Shinomiya reaches out and grips the microphone, his movements deliberate and commanding the attention of everyone in the hall. A sharp, high-pitched screech of feedback tears through the room, forcing many of the guests to wince and cover their ears in discomfort. The blonde youth stands tall on the stage, addressing the entire room and stating that there is something very important he needs to tell them all. Hina stares at the stage in shock, her mind racing as she tries to understand the meaning behind this sudden announcement. Shinomiya continues, announcing that he is going to talk about the true ruler he knows, leaving the entire audience in a stunned and expectant silence. Shinomiya lets out a wild, unhinged scream that echoes through the grand hall, his eyes wide and bloodshot with a sudden, inexplicable madness. Hina Shinomiya watches in absolute horror, her face turning pale as she struggles to process the violent and sudden change in her senior's behavior. A steady hand reaches out to pick up a dark fedora, a quiet voice noting that everything is proceeding perfectly according to the plan he set in motion. Soma places the hat firmly on his head, adjusting the brim to cast a shadow over his eyes as he prepares for the next phase of his operation. Leaning into his hidden microphone, he gives Mio the final order to initiate the next step and let the chaos unfold. The scene shifts back to a few minutes earlier, when Shinomiya was standing calmly on the stage, oblivious to the trap that was about to spring. From the shadows at the side of the hall, a figure with a briefcase watches the blond young man intently, waiting for the precise moment to strike. Their gazes meet across the crowded room, one burning with the cold fire of vengeance, the other widening with the first seeds of genuine fear. A hand reaches into the frame to present a folder to Shinomiya, telling him that he is going to read its contents out loud in front of all the gathered guests. Shinomiya takes the document, his earlier confidence beginning to falter, as he realizes he has been cornered in front of the very elite he sought to lead. Soma's eye glows a fierce crimson as he smirks, instructing Mio to take full control of the room's environment for them. The man in the suit looks around in a panic, sweat beading on his forehead as he wonders aloud what on earth the boy on stage is even talking about. Desperate to prevent a public scandal, he barks an order at his security team to stop the spectacle and drag Shinomiya off the stage immediately. But Shinomiya has already lost all restraint, laughing maniacally as he shouts to the crowd that he has been bugging the fraternity and spying on every detail of their lives. Hina trembles with a mix of fear and deep disgust, clutching her chest as she hears him boast about listening to them even in their most private moments. On the stage, he continues his deranged rant, yelling at the top of his lungs that he knows every secret and is the only true ruler in the room. The older man shouts for him to be silent, calling him a shameless fool as several guards tackle Shinomiya and haul him away from the microphone. As the chaos erupts behind him, Soma walks calmly down the red-carpeted hall, his silhouette fading into the distance as he completes this stage of his mission. Soma Sakaki keeps a low profile, making sure to avoid the security cameras as he moves through the restricted hall. A security guard intercepts him, stating that the area is strictly off-limits to any guests. Soma looks the man in the eyes, which glow a deep crimson as he uses his ALIUS ability to claim that he's actually a member of the staff. He reaches out to touch the guard's ID, and the man's eyes immediately lose their focus as he falls under Soma's control. With the path clear, Soma checks a stolen layout of the building's schedule and staff. He moves quickly down the corridor, figuring the portfolio manager's room should be just ahead. Nearby, an executive in glasses steps out of a room, demanding to know what all the noise is about. Soma watches from the shadows as a staff member tells the man that there's been some news regarding his son, Shinomiya. The executive walks away in a huff, complaining that this distraction is happening right before their most important presentation. Soma waits for the coast to clear before heading toward his destination. He reaches the door and slips inside, hoping he's finally reached the source of the data. To his surprise, the room is full of senior officials who all stop their meeting to stare at him. Before they can call for security, Soma's eyes flash red as he orders everyone in the room to leave immediately. The officials stand up like programmed drones and file out the door without saying a word. Controlling that many people at once takes a massive toll on Soma, and he clutches his throat in pain. He forces himself to bark out another order, telling them to get as far away as possible. He adds a final command for them not to return for at least an hour to buy himself some time. Once the room is empty, the weight of the ability strain hits him, and he nearly collapses. He takes a moment to steady himself, gasping for air as the mental fatigue sets in. He quickly sits at the computer and contacts Mio, telling her that he finally has access to the terminal. A sharp, digital pain ripples through his vision, making him wonder if he's pushing his ability to its absolute limit. Mio's voice comes through the comms, sounding worried as she notices him slumped over the desk. On her screen, Mio looks stressed and asks if he's really okay to keep going. Soma tells her he's fine and that it's nothing, refocusing his attention on the computer screen. He starts typing at a frantic pace, trying to break through the final layers of encryption. His eyes are locked on the monitor, knowing he needs to grab the data before anyone notices the empty boardroom. Mio reports that she successfully breached the data server and can see the network logs. Soma replies that he's almost at the logs himself, and just needs a few more seconds. As the progress bar fills, he thinks about the money trails of the Who Fund and the people who destroyed his father's life. He grits his teeth, determined to finally get the evidence that will start building his case. The transfer hits 94% when a massive security alert pops up on the screen, indicating they'd been detected. Soma stands up in shock as a loud alarm starts to blare throughout the entire floor. He looks around in a panic, realizing their cover has been completely blown. Through the earpiece, Mio warns him that the situation has taken a turn for the worst. Outside in the woods, Mio frantically monitors her laptop, realizing they tripped the system's main security. She shouts for Soma to kill the session immediately so they don't get traced. Soma grabs his USB drive and rips it out of the computer, hoping he got enough of the data. Mio tells him to get out of there as fast as he can. He sprints down the red-carpeted hallway, telling himself that even an incomplete file should be enough to start a case. He sees a door at the end of the hall and decides to try escaping through the staff exit. He skids to a halt, a look of frustration crossing his face. He looks at the panel and realizes he needs a keycard to get through. Soma Sakaki curses his luck, wishing he had grabbed a security card before getting himself into this mess. He walks briskly down the narrow corridor, his mind racing to find an escape route. He visualizes the layout he memorized earlier, searching for any other possible way out. Since the back exit is blocked without a key, he decides his only choice is to head back toward the front of the building. As he moves through the halls, Hina Shinomiya catches sight of him and stops in her tracks. She asks him where he's been hiding and questions why he's wearing such a strange hat. Sōma doesn't answer, his face tight with the pressure of being hunted. Guests can be seen hurrying in the distance as Sōma explains that something urgent has come up and he needs to leave immediately. Hina looks shocked, mentioning that things are already turning into a disaster in the main hall with Shinomiya-senpai. Sōma apologizes, insisting that he really has to step out right now. He turns his back on her, focusing all his energy on just getting outside. He glances sideways, noting that the guards are too close for him to make a clean break. He sees a group of security officers ahead and realizes he isn't strong enough to take them all down at once. He keeps moving, but his steps are heavy with the realization of how trapped he truly is. He notices a security camera overhead and thinks that he can't risk using his brainwashing ability while he's being watched. A dark thought crosses his mind about how easily someone could end his life if they caught him in the act. He grits his teeth, determined not to let it end here. A guard nearby looks down at his radio, appearing confused by the orders coming through. Sōma glances back, checking for any immediate pursuit. The security radio announces that an unauthorized intruder in a hat has been spotted moving toward the south exit. Hearing that they've already identified his disguise, Sōma clenches his fist in frustration. He takes off running, his fedora flying behind him as he realizes he needs to secure a card from somewhere. He pushes himself to reach the staff entrance, hoping it's still his best chance at freedom. A sharp ringing fills his ears, a warning sign that his body is reaching its limit. He tells himself that he doesn't just need to escape, he also has to shake off everyone chasing him. He bursts through a pair of doors and finds himself in the middle of a crowded room. He tries to blend into the sea of guests, but the panic in his eyes gives him away. The guards burst in after him, one of them pointing him out to the rest of the team. Soma's eyes dart around as he wonders how much longer he can keep using his ability before it breaks him. He stands amongst the confused guests, looking for any opening. He looks completely drained, his face pale as the guards close the distance. The security leader shouts for his men to cut the intruder off and bring him down. With no other choice, Sōma clenches his fist and prepares to use his power one last time. He stands surrounded by people who have no idea what's about to happen. He activates his ALIUS, a dark energy swirling around him as he gathers his strength. He focuses on the entire room, preparing to issue a command that no one can resist. Shinomiya looks on from the crowd, his expression filled with suspicion and confusion. Hina and the other guests are caught in the growing red glow of Soma's eyes. Sōma commands everyone to become his wall, his voice booming with the weight of his power. Instantly, the guests' eyes turn red as they step forward, forming a massive human shield. Sōma takes off at a sprint, leaving the guards to deal with the wall of mindless bodies. One of the guards is left standing in a daze, his glasses slipping as he tries to make sense of what just happened. Sōma Sakaki grits his teeth, his vision blurring as he tells himself he still cannot afford to be caught. He pushes forward with everything he has left, his body screaming in protest from the strain of his ability. Out of the shadows, Mio appears, her face pale with worry as she calls out to him. She waves him over urgently, insisting that he follow her to safety before the guards close in on them. Soma's eyes widen in recognition, but the sudden relief of seeing a friendly face is short-lived. He suddenly doubles over, clutching his mouth as a violent coughing fit racks his entire frame. Sōma suddenly covers his mouth as blood spills out between his fingers, a heavy price for overusing ALIUS. He looks down at his crimson-stained palm, his face pale with the physical toll of his ability. Mio's voice trembles as she screams his name, her eyes filling with tears at the sight of his condition. She rushes to his side just as he collapses to his knees, his body finally giving out under the pressure. He looks up with a dazed and weary expression, the blood from his mouth staining his chin and neck. The scene shifts to the exterior of their dark hideout, towering over the city streets at night. Back in the hallway, Sōma tells Mio that he can manage on his own, even as he leans heavily on her. He insists that she shouldn't worry about him, claiming that he'll be back to normal in just a few moments. Suddenly, a fist slams against the wall right next to Soma's head, startling him. Kaito pins him against the cold surface, his eyes burning with an intense and dangerous light. Kaito stands over him, his expression twisted in a mixture of cold rage and deep-seated betrayal. Mio cries out in shock, pleading with Kaito to stop before he does any more damage to the wounded man. Kaito grabs Soma by the front of his shirt, his face close to his as he starts to shout. He demands to know just what kind of stunt Soma is trying to pull on them after everything they've been through. Soma struggles to respond, his voice weak as he begins to say his name. Kaito stares at him in silence, his expression cold as he waits for a lie or the truth. Kaito clenches his jaw, the tension between them reaching a breaking point as Mio watches in horror. Soma suddenly collapses from exhaustion, prompting Mio to cry out his name in alarm as he hits the floor. The room falls into a heavy silence as Soma eventually lies unconscious on the sofa, his face pale and drained. Mio stares at the wall in confusion, noticing the photos of Shuho Academy students and their parents pinned there. Kaito joins her, pointing out that the board contains photos of both of their fathers alongside the other targets. He looks at the unconscious Soma with a newfound clarity, realizing the depth of the deception they've been part of. Far away at Shiratori General Hospital, the sterile hallways hum with the constant sound of medical equipment. In a private room, the real Takagi Sōma lies motionless on a bed, his life sustained entirely by a ventilator. Kaito pieces together the truth, stating that the man they know is actually an imposter who stole someone's identity. He concludes that the man's true identity is Soma Sakaki, having finally pieced together the puzzle. Soma remains oblivious to their discovery, trapped in a deep, exhausted sleep on the couch. Mio's voice is full of disbelief as she asks how it's even possible for someone to steal another's life so perfectly. Soma suddenly calls out to the two of them, his voice breaking the heavy silence of the room as he wakes up. He offers a sincere apology for the trouble he's caused and thanks them for coming to his aid. Mio quickly assures him that she's fine, her concern for him still outweighing her confusion. Kaito cuts her off, ordering Soma to start talking and explain who he really is and what he's doing. Soma stares back at him with a hollow gaze, his silence only adding to the mounting pressure in the room. Mio watches him with a worried expression, her voice a soft whisper as she calls out to him. Soma finally speaks, explaining that he felt he had no other option and needed to take on the identity of Takagi Sōma. He stands before Kaito, declaring that his only goal was to finally bring the hidden truth out into the light. Mio looks at Soma Sakaki with a confused and concerned expression, asking what truth he is referring to. Kaito's anger boils over as he shouts at Soma, demanding to know if he plans to keep hiding things from them even now, while Mio begs him to trust them and explain what is really going on. Soma Sakaki scoffs bitterly at the mention of trust, a dark shadow crossing his face as he stays silent for a moment. He reveals that his parents were people who believed in doing the right thing, but that conviction is exactly what got them killed. Kaito and Mio are frozen in shock, their eyes wide as they take in the gravity of his words. Soma points to a screen showing a news report about a banker named Sakaki Shuichi and an embezzlement case, asking them if they still remember it. Mio realizes that the case he's referring to was the one her own father had been investigating, her eyes reflecting the sudden connection. Soma stands tall despite his blood-stained clothes, declaring with a cold finality that Sakaki Shuichi was his father. Kaito clenches his teeth, the intensity of the situation causing sweat to bead on his forehead as he listens to the truth. Soma explains how they framed his father for a crime he never committed, before murdering him and staging it to look like a suicide. Kaito asks how he could possibly know such specific and damning details about a case that was officially closed. Soma pulls out a small black journal, stating that his father had been trying to expose the crimes of the wealthy and that this book is the evidence. He looks down at the journal, noting that unfortunately, the information within was never complete enough for the police to actually build a case. Mio finally understands the situation, her expression softening as she realizes that her father had no choice but to back off the investigation back then. Kaito stares at Soma, asking directly if his ultimate goal is simply to get revenge for his father. Soma's expression darkens further as he looks away, simply confirming that revenge is indeed his motive. Mio becomes determined, suggesting that with the new information they recovered from the guest house, they can finally move forward. She insists that they should hand everything over and let the police handle the rest of the work. Soma's gaze remains cold and unshakable as he tells her that the evidence they have is still not enough to bring them down. Soma stares at the monitor, his face pale with sweat as he realizes the data they snatched isn't complete. He pulls out the USB drive, explaining that the files they managed to get aren't enough to expose the truth. Back at the hideout, Kaido eyes the blood on Soma's shirt and asks what he plans to do now. Soma stares off into the dark, determined to crack open the hidden parts of the case and secure the evidence once and for all. He looks back with a cold, intense gaze, insisting that he's the only one who can get the job done. Kaito and Mio look on in shock as Kaido realizes Soma is planning to use that dangerous ALIUS ability again. Soma stays silent, the weight of his decision visible in his eyes. Mio steps forward, admitting that she's already heard more than enough to know how dangerous this is. Rain falls steadily outside the window, matching the grim mood inside their hideout. Soma tells them he can't go into details, insisting they're better off not knowing what he has to do. Kaido doesn't buy the secrecy, asking if it's because this mission might actually get them all killed. Mio's heart drops, her eyes wide with fear as the reality of the situation hits her. Soma looks at her, his expression remaining hauntingly calm despite the stakes. Kaido stands his ground, waiting for Soma to admit the truth about the danger they face. Soma finally lets it out, warning them both that staying involved with him puts them in real peril. A heavy silence hangs between the three of them as they process the warning. Soma turns his back to them, apologizing for dragging them into his mess and telling them to leave him. He looks at the investigation board, his mind already racing with the next phase of his revenge. He stands alone, trying to push his only allies away for their own protection. Mio looks down, her voice trembling slightly as she calls out to him. A memory of his father's voice echoes in his head, talking about the duty to finish things properly. Shuichi Sakaki appears in the flashback, a man who believed justice was something you had to achieve with your own hands. Mio clenches her fist, admitting she's scared but reminding them that her father never gave up on this case. She looks up with fierce determination, vowing to keep helping Soma if it means finishing what her father started. Soma is genuinely surprised by her resolve and quietly thanks her. They clasp hands firmly, a silent promise to see this through to the end together. Before they can say more, Kaido steps up to voice his own conviction. Kaido smacks his fist into his palm, the sound echoing through the dark room. He says he's not about to back down now, declaring that he's been ready to throw his own father in jail since the start. With a look of pure hatred, Kaido explains that he views his father as nothing more than part of the rot in this town. Soma watches him closely, asking if he's truly okay with destroying his own family for the sake of justice. The three of them stand united, their faces reflecting a shared, grim resolve. Across town, the peace of a traditional home is broken by the sharp ring of the doorbell. Soma's mother opens the door, looking puzzled by her unexpected visitor. Yasuda flashes his public security badge and tells her he's with the police. The air turns cold as Yasuda looks at the worried woman and tells her he needs to talk about her son. He drops a final, haunting question, asking if she's noticed that the boy she knows has become a completely different person.